We're ready? Okay. All right, great. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the Tuesday, March 24th, Radnor Township School District virtual regular business meeting. For anyone out there watching live stream, thank you for understanding that this is, we're using technology for good to conduct the business of the district. I'm going to just read a short statement before we get going. The Radnor Township School District will be holding this virtual business meeting on March 24th at 7 p.m. Although no public will be admitted to the district administration building due to Governor Wolf's directives and order, and upon the advice of the Pennsylvania Department of Health and CDC, for your safety and convenience, this meeting is being live streamed. To access the live stream, you may go to the regular business meeting, the Radnor Township School District website, School Board Live Streaming. Public comment and/or questions may be emailed to boardcomments@rtsd.org. And please note your name and address will be required in order for your comment to be read during the meeting. I'll try that. I'll go a little better. So at this point, we're going to call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we have the board is joining us virtually. I guess, Jackie, you'll take attendance for us. And I'd like to thank everyone for participating and bearing with us as we try this new technology tonight. I'd like to report that the board met in executive session on the following dates: February 25th, 2020, following our regular business meeting, and March 13th, 2020, and both were to discuss legal and personnel items. And now we have our report from students, and with us tonight we have Avery Chiato, right? Welcome, Avery.
Hi, everyone. It's a little different being behind a computer screen this evening, but I'm glad to be here and that we figured out all the technical difficulties. Us students are supposed to be the ones that know how to work this, but it wasn't the case tonight. Austin has a virtual dance practice tonight, so sadly he is not able to join us. First and foremost, online learning started last week. I'm a school lover myself, so it's hard not to be in the classroom with all my friends and teachers, but this is better than nothing. Every teacher has their own approach to online learning, which definitely has its pros and cons. For my curriculum, some of my teachers have opted for the recorded audio lecture, while others have just assigned work through Schoology. Every morning I wake up and input my attendance, and my teachers have uploaded my assignments for the day. With that being said, the pre-recorded videos are great to be able to watch on my own time, yet having a program like Zoom where I could log in at a specific time, day, and have that interaction with the teachers and my students could help foster better conversation and retention of the material. I personally have felt that my teachers have been respectful with the amount of work that they have been assigning, but I've heard from some of my peers that they have had problems with the amount of work that they have been assigned. Overall, I have had some great success with my online learning over these last few days, and I'm excited to have it continue on here forward. Sticking with the school topic, recently the College Board has taken extensive action to help minimize the spread of COVID-19. They began by canceling the March and May SAT dates. The March SAT was canceled only days before the test was to be administered. This caused significant frustration in many students who had been preparing for weeks prior to the exam. Additionally, AP has just announced that all exams will be administered at home. College Board even reduced the amount of material that is required to know for the exam and the duration of the exam itself. AP test lengths could be about 45 minutes. As you may or may not know, exams are usually about 3 hours, so this is a drastic reduction. Students are patiently waiting to see what the new format of the exam will be so that they can begin their preparation. On another note, for many athletes, they weren't expecting their seasons to terminate so abruptly. It was almost hard to process when I walked off the field for the final time that was going to be my last practice for a while. Many teams seem destined for success this season and are eager to get back on the fields. The Instagram trend, #LetTheKidsPlay, has been used by many athletes, including those at Radnor, trying to petition the PIAA to not cancel our seasons for good. Finally, Radnor, our own high school newspaper, has been publishing plenty of articles recently to help our students stay busy during this time. The most recent article posted today was called Jerry's Top 4 Family Activities for the Whole Family, written by Jerry Atkinson. Jerry's 4 family activities, which were quite comedic, gave the students a laugh during this time. And here they are. 1. Make a new family member. Jerry reasoned that after being cooped up inside for a while with your family members, you might need a bit of a change. He suggested using toilet paper and hand sanitizer to paper mache a new family member. 2. Thank Ken Batchelor. Jerry suggested a 5,000 or maybe 10,000 word essay to thank our dear Mr. Batchelor. Prepare yourself for those family written essays, Mr. Batchelor. 3. Guess how many push-ups Mr. Batchelor can do? Can he do more than Mr. Buzza? 6? 500? How many can he do? And 4. Travel. Take advantage of those cheap tickets and lack of people. These comedic ideas gave the students a laugh. Radnor also pulled out a few 2020 Keystone Awards. Ellie Davis tied for first place with her feature story, The Disparity Within Pennsylvania's Education System. Jesse Conan won second place for his sports story, Radnor's Fall Sports Roundup 2019. Elizabeth Chupin won second place for her feature photography titled Ellen Week 2019, the 123rd meeting. And Estelle Atkinson, Ann Griffin, Andrew Rosen, and Mohen Lee won second place for website design of the 2019 Radnor site. If you want to read the entirety of Jerry's article or any of the award-winning articles, visit radnorright.com. Stay healthy, and I hope to see everyone at a face-to-face meeting soon.
Avery, thank you so much. And now we're going to have our report from our superintendent, and we hope that you stay well. We look forward to hearing how your lessons are going online. Mr. Batchelor?
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight, both the board members and administration, and Avery for being here with us, and also those of you who are watching from home. Avery, I think the essay should be more towards the 10,000 word is what I'd like to encourage everyone, since we are on a little bit of a break. And I'm going to have to reach out to Mr. Buzza. I'm going to see how many push-ups Mr. Buzza thinks he can do. I can tell you this. I could probably do more push-ups before this all started than I'll be able to do at the end of all this. But I may be up to the challenge later. In all seriousness, Avery touched on many of the things I wanted to touch on. As it's clear, we've moved online. We've moved our meetings virtually. I want to first and just foremost just take a moment to, first off, thank all of our staff, our teachers, our administration, our support staff have been literally working around the clock to make this happen. With specific thank you to our technology department, our administrative team, and our teachers. Our tech department has been working tirelessly to not only make sure things like this can happen, but been working hard to make sure that we can make technology available to our students as well. Our parents, I want to take a moment to thank our parents. It's not an easy job to all of a sudden realize you have to be home with your kids, trying to plan and support them depending their grade, their age, with their education, and you're working from home as well. I can truly recognize how difficult that is, and for all that our parents are doing to continue to partner with us. And Avery, to you and the students have shown a great amount of flexibility. We are hearing what you said about it would be nice to have some moments when classes are live, whether it's through Zoom or not, and we'll be discussing a little bit that later tonight as well. But our students have shown just a great amount of flexibility and understanding, and I think it's been important for us as educators to keep some consistency, some expectations, and to keep our program moving forward. And we've been able to do that because of the hard work of so many people in this district. And when you start listing people, you run the risk of leaving different groups out. And it has really just been so many who have been working so hard. We're doing what we're doing right now because there were administrators and teachers in the district who said, we're ready. Let's move forward. Let's move forward as best we can, and we'll continue to improve as we do this. So Chris Augustine, Mr. Augustine is running our PowerPoints for us. So I just would like to ask him if he could switch to the first photo collage there on the PowerPoint, if you could do that for a moment. And I just wanted to share out some pictures with the board and our community. And the pictures that he's going to share just share some of the things that have been happening in the last, it's hard to believe it's just week 2. It feels like we've been doing this a lot longer. But if we could go to the next slide there on that, Chris, that would be great. Pictured there, you can see our food service staff immediately set up a system to reach out to our families, those families that have been receiving free or reduced lunch, to make sure that we could provide food and supports. We delivered food to those homes last week. We've set up another opportunities for grab and go with the food, so we will continue to be doing that. And the staff between our food services and transportation department who have come in to help with that has been absolutely wonderful. You can see one of the pictures I already mentioned. We're in the process now of getting more devices in our kids' hands. Last week we made sure that we had devices that went out to our most needy students and families who had maybe limited technology or no technology at all. This week we're opening up that technology. We're getting it out to our 6th graders. Tomorrow will be our 5th graders. Thursday will be our 7th, and Friday will be our 8th graders. We have that up as a pickup time. Families, please, if you need that technology, please come in and pick it up. Your principal will be in touch with you. As a father with several children at home, I can understand that it would be easier to have that additional technology or that additional screen. It also is one of the things that will help us move to, if and when we can do some more synchronized lessons, this will give us that opportunity so that everyone can be synchronized at the same time, so that families aren't just sharing one screen. So please feel comfortable coming in on those pickup times to pick those devices up. If things are working fine for you at home and you have a device at home with a camera and it's been working smoothly and you don't want to disrupt that, we understand. We're not forcing you to come get it, but we also want you to know that those grade levels, you are more than welcome to come get those devices on those days, and we're prepared for you to come pick them up. We also have on the right side of the column there, you can see just 2 snippets, one from our high school principal, the picture there of Mrs. Kevgis, and Dr. Weidlich, a picture of Dr. Weidlich and his kids, and Mrs. Kevgis and her son. Just a small example of some of the things that our principals and others have been doing to do the morning announcements to their building community, to share with their students and connect with them. Our staff, our administration truly care about our kids. They care about how our kids are doing through this time period. And as much as our kids, we heard from Avery, she wants to connect with her teachers and her class. All of us, the adults, want to connect. We're missing those opportunities. So we're looking to create more opportunities to connect beyond just the videos. But I appreciate all the efforts that our administrative team and teachers are making right now. The next slide on the slide here, Chris, you go to the next slide. It just lists our, go back up, sorry, thank you. This just lists, I want to remind our families and remind the board and our administration of our frequently asked questions site. We have been keeping this updated. Mr. Bettiti has been working around the clock, getting information from all our principals, staying in constant communication with our principals and our directors to make sure that this is a one-stop shopping. We realize we're inundating families and honestly each other with emails. By working from home, we are all emailing each other, it seems like 50 times more than we were on a normal day. This whole working from home thing is a lot harder than when we were coming into the office. We're finding we're far busier answering emails and Zoom meetings. So we realized our parents are probably just as overwhelmed. So we want to make sure for our parents there's a one-stop shopping and it is continuously updated for all the different questions or all the different pieces as we move forward as a district. And then I wanted to also just share, a couple of, we've been asking parents for feedback and we want the feedback to continue. Giving feedback to your teachers and to your principals through this is really helpful. We are listening to that feedback and trying to make adjustments as we move forward. I just want to share with you a couple that the principals have been sharing with me. And I'm going to share three positives, and I'm going to share one that you could say, is some of the concerns I've been getting, or maybe a negative, and how that symbolizes or symbolic of some of the others that I've received. But let me go through a couple of the positives I just want to share. This was an email from a parent. I feel the need to send you all a quick note of extreme gratitude. Since school closed on Friday, I have stepped in as teacher, janitor, cafeteria worker, PE instructor, recess aide, librarian, and principal. That is when my two students required detention. This is from a mother. She says, I failed miserably, unfortunately, as the music teacher. Your teachers have reached out to keep us updated on how this new life will continue to educate them, even as they deal with their own personal issues. Our teachers have happily responded to my children's emails to them where they are asking, believe it or not, at times for extra work. Today, our family is so grateful for everyone in RTSD and all the amazing work that they do each and every day. And today, we are grateful for some new structure. So thank you from the bottom of our heart for all those long and tireless hours everyone has put in the past week to make education continue. This one's from another parent. I'm sure you are all exhausted and stressed and overwhelmed, but I just want to send you a note to say what an amazing job you have all done in the past week. In what feels like a short amount of time, you've worked with and helped teachers completely redesign what school now looks like for our kids, and they can continue to learn at home. You've supplied families in need with laptops, provided meals for students who rely on them while at school, trained teachers on how to move to a virtual learning model, communicated often and clearly with parents and staff, continued to plan in the event that this lasts longer than expected, and so much more. And you are doing this in the midst of a global crisis, which I am sure is causing worry and anxiety on a personal level, too. I've heard from many parents throughout the week and today after day one launch that their child was able to successfully complete the work and is having fun, feeling successful, learning, and connected again in a new way. And the last positive I just wanted to mention was a parent who wrote to us, I want to thank you again for all that you've done and all the reach out to teachers, and please relay to the teachers our thanks. My two children are in middle school and high school, and I can't speak to how it is going on the elementary school, but I can certainly speak of my children's teachers and tell you just how moved I am and impressed and blown away by the level of love and caring and respect that these teachers have for our children. It's not just how hard they are working to keep the momentum of the year going, but it's how creative they must be, but it is the caring and support and love that they are mixing in the top. The extra emails or calls to make sure that the kids know what they are doing and can access, their sense of humor, their motivating, caring words are all just exceptional. So I wanted to share those positives because they represent many other positives that we received, but I especially wanted to share them because I wanted to make sure our teachers and our administrative team and our board are hearing that as well. I wanted to share this other one as well, where a parent wrote to us thanking us for everything that we're doing, and that everyone is doing to dramatically alter the way we are teaching is done during this incredibly challenging times. The dedication of the administration and faculty to the student population is incredible. And then she writes, I know you've been asking for feedback as things go along, so it can be incorporated as the process gets tweaked. A few days in, I thought I would share that the volume of work and classwork seems, at least for my child, who's parked at her computer for almost 12 hours a day, seemed a little bit longer than anticipated. I recognize that it is a challenge when the classes are basically solo, learning with them online, but without the interaction that normally would occur in the classroom, it is feeling at times like 12 hours of homework rather than 7 hours of school and a couple hours of homework. I'm not sure if anything realistically can be done, but you all have been so genuine in your request for feedback, I thought I would share this with you. Thank you again. I cannot imagine how difficult it is for you to be principal. This was to our principal, one of our principals, to a principal or teacher right now. And I would say this feedback is the one piece of feedback, and Avery touched on it as well, and something we're going to share tonight with everyone. And we can switch back the screen if you want, Jackie, off of or Chris, you could switch back the screen. Sorry, Chris, I should have cued you. One of the things on our agenda to discuss tonight is what is our plan? What is our plan, both the short term and long term, and what is our plan to continue to have this process evolve? I had a parent email me, and they just wrote the one word, they just said, have you heard of Zoom? So yes, we have. We have heard of it. We're using it tonight, and we have been getting that feedback as well. Just like us as a board, I think we're valuing this opportunity just to see one another, how nice it is. We are looking at opportunities to expand that instructional program, to expand it so that we are having more videos or more opportunities for teachers to reach out to their kids, in live situations. That also requires, the proper technology as well. But we are looking at that, and that's something we will share tonight. So that's it. That's all I have for my superintendent remarks. There's a lot for us to discuss tonight, but I can't thank, again, everyone enough. And I just want to thank the support of the school board. As our administrators have worked tirelessly to make this happen, our school board has been extremely supportive, supportive in helping us to move along, staying in touch and asking what can they do to support the district. Opportunities like this, a meeting like tonight, is another opportunity for them to continue that support, and I just want to thank the board for their support as we go through this together.
Well, Ken, we do have work to get underway, but I on behalf of the board, thank you. I mean, if anyone else in the public is watching, to know how many hours you and your administrative staff and the principals have been putting in, and the teachers, the last week and a half to get ready for us to move to online learning. And so many pieces of the puzzle fell into place to us in a very fortunate way. Our technology plan from a couple of years ago is really coming to bear unbelievable fruit. But, I just thank you, because I know it's been an unbelievable amount of work. Okay, we're going to get underway with public comment. If we have any emailed public comment, I guess we'll have to ask Mr. Petiti. If there are citizens out there who would like to address the board, we ask that you email your comments to boardcomments@rtsd.org. You would need to include your name and address in that email, and please state your comments. I know it's hard to judge that in typing, but if you could keep your comments to not more than 4 minutes. Mr. Petiti, do we have any emailed comments this evening so far?
Yes, we have 2.
Okay, great. Could you read them? Just make sure to speak closely to the microphone.
Is this good?
It's good, thank you.
First one, dear Ken, you and your entire staff are doing a fantastic job. I hope everyone gets the whole weekend off to catch their breath and be with their families. That's Gail Morrison. The second one is also from Miss Morrison. Hi all, I know this up to the PA DOH, and we will follow their instruction. But I hope you will read this expert view, Dr. Katz from Yale, and consider the view that reopening our schools and businesses in April is possible and could be the best course of action. And then there is a link to a New York Times article.
Okay, thank you. Is there any, and there's no other comments. So at the end of the meeting, if the public chooses to email in during the meeting, we'll be having a second public comment round at the end of the meeting. Okay, with that, we're going to get underway with our presentation. We do have a presentation. We have actual business of the district that has not anything to do with COVID or online learning right now. So, we're going to do this. You're going to do the first presentation as the status of online learning and plans during the extended school class. I'm sorry, I jumped ahead to the other one, the special ed. All right, Mr. Batchelor, you continue.
Yes, so I'll ask Chris to pull up that next slide on the page, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Bechtold, our Director of Secondary Teaching and Learning, and Mr. Dukevich, our Director of Elementary Teaching and Learning, and then also after the two of them share our process and our phases for moving forward with our program, that we'll also have Jenny Lesage share also what we're doing as we look at our special education programming as well. So I'll turn it over to Dan.
All right. Thank you. So what you're going to see in our online learning phase plan is the academic side of things. This does not necessarily include all of the work that's been done over the last couple weeks. This really focuses on the nuts and bolts of the education. A lot of work's been done behind the scenes regarding a food insecurity plan for those in need, determining who essential employees are and how we can work with them. Things like what do we do with mail deliveries? How do we ensure that the security and operations logistics for the buildings as people aren't there? Rerouting phones, mobile IT support for students and for employees, And then, as Jenny's going to talk about, making sure that we're meeting the needs of students that are English language learners, those that have IEPs, GIPs, 504s, etc. So this plan that you're going to see for us is what Sean Dukevich and I worked on with central office and building level administrators to really put together a plan for how the district could continue education remotely. So this plan actually started, phase one we're completed with now. This started prior to the governor closing schools. So as we were watching and seeing what was happening across the United States and in other countries, we started to prioritize professional development for our teachers in the anticipation that that could be coming for, that could be coming down the road, and Pennsylvania could shut schools down. So the week prior to schools getting shut down, or the week that schools did get shut down, we had teacher professional development sessions for high school and middle school teachers, and we also pulled together a cohort of elementary lead teachers to go and craft content for students K-5 on Schoology. After that, we started working on a technology, exploring a technology advanced purchase plan. So we do have a technology 3-year plan, and depending on how long this this online learning goes and how long schools stay closed, we looked at our budgets and collaborated with the technology office, the business office, and the curriculum office to identify funds that we could use to accelerate that plan, to make sure that we had the best technology for all of our students. So we'd have a K-12 one-to-one, and for our employees that be working with these with our students. The goal being we wanted to be at the front of the line. We saw this as the possibility, if it's an extended outage, that a lot of districts would jump on this and it would be like a Black Friday sale. So we were able to find funds and to accelerate our 3-year technology plan and placed orders for new devices. Part of this that we worked on was identifying families that did not have internet and those that needed technology. And so we spent essentially a week and a half getting technology to those families, having our social workers reach out, identifying programs where they could get free internet for those families to their homes, and working with them to get the internet set up. We started working on attendance protocol planning, and we've been in contact with a number of different school districts. A lot of school districts are following the flexible instructional day protocols. And so we actually collaborated with other school districts that were working on attendance protocols through their LMS. And so we got that planning up in phase one. And then we also started planning in phase one for our Chromebook deployment for grades 5 through 8. One of the things that we identified as a potential need for families is you may have a device at home, but you may have 3 or 4 kids, and having your children try to share a device would be a challenge. So the thought being, if we could go and deploy our Chromebooks 5 through 8, it could provide some relief for families, so they wouldn't have to share as many devices, and it could help out students that would need to access things concurrently. So phase one has been completed. These phases that you're going to see, there are 4 phases. Although phase one we've done in approximately a week and a half, phase two we have approximately a week that we're getting through. When we get to phase 3 and phase 4, these are not necessarily week-long plans, but that's kind of where we're at with phase 1. So I'll turn it over to Sean for phase 2.
Thank you, Dan. As you can see on the screen, phase 2 moves from preparation and implementation to expansion and development. So just yesterday, Governor Wolf, as we know, extended our closure through the first week in April. We implemented our online attendance collection that began at all levels. And then currently, to different degrees, we're involved in an investigation stage, a planning stage, to some degree a refining stage of a number of things, from live to recorded instruction, and how we can do that with fidelity and ways that we can put our teachers in good places so they can deliver instruction appropriately for students, and what does that look like? We've been looking at a collaboration and catch-up day in a response to some of the feedback we've heard from parents that some of the content has been overwhelming, and dealing with some of the dynamics in their household and becoming the teachers and trying to manage all those things. And also providing our teachers with professional development and planning time. We've looked at and investigated the possibility of adding a day during the week to provide PD to our teachers and for students to have some time to catch up on work. We're also looking again at things that are common during this time of year, our action research for our teachers, our SLOs, observations. What does that look like during an extended closure? Of course, the testing, which was mentioned earlier, and how we're dealing with that. And then just generally additional support options for students and teachers. How are we assessing our students' learning? And generally, what are we doing to provide them with the right tools and professional development and support? Actually, today we began, Mr. Bachelor mentioned this earlier, our 6th grade students received Chromebooks today out of the middle school. Tomorrow, 5th grade will receive Chromebooks at each of the elementary schools. On Thursday, our 7th grade, and Friday, our 8th grade will have the Chromebooks displayed to them throughout the day as a schedule. So this is essentially the expansion and development of our online learning program. And this is where we are right now. And Dan's going to talk next about our 3rd phase.
So for phase 3, it's our enhancement and adaptation phase. So we're looking at, in this phase, to plan for additional extended closure contingencies. So in case that schools across the Commonwealth do not return this semester, while we're all hopeful that this current situation resolves itself quickly, we also, in phase 3, intend to plan in the event that it does not. So what would commencement look like? What will we do for final exams? What will we do for things that typically start to get planned towards the end of the year, like summer camp, summer school, year-end celebrations, etc. There are a number of schools around us that are making determinations about things like commencement. So Villanova, I know they just put out that they're going to be doing virtual commencement. So in phase 3, we would start to look at what an extended closure would be if we don't return this semester. We're going to continue to provide high quality professional development for the employees here to refine and develop and enhance the education that we're providing to our students. Sean talked a little bit about collaboration and catch-up day, and that is something that we're actually finalizing details on this week. We're looking to put in place for next week. And so we anticipate getting information out to families about this. And again, this is based off feedback that we got from parents, students, and teachers about giving people the time to catch their breath and to give teachers a chance to get professional development. And so that's something we're looking to roll out as early as next week. We are currently exploring, and I heard Avery speak about synchronous live streaming. So we have been actively looking into that. One of the things we want to do is make sure that whatever option we go with, that it provides protections for our students and teachers, and also is in compliance with the laws. There have been schools that have been experiencing issues with Zoom bombing and having graphic content that we've had outside people that have been getting links and then coming in and doing inappropriate things to disrupt lessons. So we want to make sure that we are very thoughtful in rolling this out, and so we appreciate everyone's patience. We do anticipate that we will have options for our teachers and students to interact, and that is something that we have actively been working on, but we certainly want to make sure we are very thoughtful about that, and so that's something that will be in phase 3, and that is certainly coming. We are looking and have been collaborating a lot with other districts and are looking at sharing. And so one of the things that's great about schools is during this time, there's been a lot of collaborations going on. And so in the enhancement and adaptation phase, we will look at what the K-12 offerings that we're providing and what other local school districts are doing as far as software and online curriculum, and what we can enhance, what we can use to enhance our instruction. And then lastly, we will get into, in phase 3, the device deployment planning for students K through 4 and for our K to 8 teachers. And then we'll move on to phase 4.
Thanks, Dan. So phase 4 is refinement. Again, phases 3 and 4 in large part are going to be contingent on an extended closure beyond what we expect right now. In phase 4, we want to continue to refine our instructional practices, how we're delivering content through Schoology. We're going to be receiving teacher devices, hopefully within the next several weeks. We want to get those deployed to teachers. They're more robust. They have other options, cameras built in, things like that. They will be able to enhance their instruction with a stronger, more robust device. We want to continue online professional development for teachers and for students, not only just to enhance their instruction, but also how to care for their devices. Also, we want to make sure our professional development is targeted based on emergent needs. So as we continue to develop our online instruction, if we're learning that we need to go a different direction or to enhance one place or another, we want to make sure our professional development is in line with what those needs are. And of course, we want to continue our communication. This goes through all the phases, but we're regularly communicating with all of our local municipalities, our health officials, the Radnor Township community, and then eventually, hopefully, if we are on an extended closure, we want to resume our work toward school board goals, priority projects such as the homework PE for athletes, student wellness study, things like that. Right now, of course, our focus has been entirely on online learning and supporting our students, our teachers, our principals, and the community. But once we get into a good place, we want to resume our work that was meant for the year. And that pretty much concludes the 4 phases. And from Dan and I, we just want to thank everyone for their support. And I want to credit again the teachers, the principals, the admin team for all the work they're doing to support us, and the school board, of course.
And then, thank you, Sean and Dan. And maybe if we could have Jenny, Mrs. Lesage, if you could just share some of what we're doing with our special ed, and then I would open the whole thing up for board questions, if that would work. So we can have questions about the 4 phases, but I want to ask Jenny if she could share some pieces. And so while we do that, Chris, you could go back to the screen, if you want, of all of us for that piece. So I'll turn it over to Jenny.
Okay. Hi, everyone, and it's great to see everyone. So I'm just going to do just 2 quick things. Communication and services are the 2 things that George and I have really been working on. With communication, when this all came about, we sent a letter out to all of our parents of students with special education, gifted 504 families, just letting them know that we are working with them. We are going to be coming up with a plan. And our plan is underway, and it's still slowly being tweaked as we move forward into day 4. I think it is. It feels like it's day 40, but I think it's day 4. And it is going very smoothly for as quickly as we had to do this. George and I have also set up Zoom meetings where we invite our entire staff to come and join us so we can go over all of the different changes and really look at special education, gifted education, 504 plans, as well as all of the things we do with our evaluations and reevaluations in this time. As you know, special ed has lots of timelines, and our staff was getting very concerned. We continue to hold our meetings. We're having annual IEP meetings, 504 meetings, gifted meetings. And our psychologists are continually working on maintaining their timelines as we move forward. When it comes to services, we were lucky enough to have our therapies continue. Our speech and language, our OT, or occupational therapy, I'm sorry, I'm going to try not to do that. Our physical therapy, and also our therapies for our licensed mental health counselors through Lakeside have been reaching out to individuals and continuing to give them the supports that they need in this time, as this is a time where people are feeling a lot of stress and a lot of angst, and our counselors continue to help the students that they helped before we were in this crisis. So we're doing that. Our social workers, I cannot say enough about Kira and Christine, they have worked endlessly with providing our families with gift cards to help them make it through this time. They have worked with Beth Cook and everybody that's working with providing the meals for our families. They work with the local, food banks, things like that. They've delivered things to families. They're just constantly they have the pulse of our entire community, and they're working tirelessly. I just talked to Kira before we started here tonight, and it's amazing the amount of work that those two have done. Our psychologists have come together, and they continue to provide the supports for our families, and they continue with the timelines that we must maintain in providing these reevaluation and evaluations, and calling parents and talking with them about the results over the phone. Obviously can't do it in person, but it is an ongoing process as we continue to maintain those timelines. I cannot say enough about what our teachers are doing, all of our teachers. Our special education teachers are really faced with the situation where they're trying to provide instruction for students that have certain needs that make it possibly a little more difficult to reach them and get them the curriculum online. But they have really done an amazing job and have really taught us all a lot about how online instruction can work for these students with the personalization that they're giving all of the students on their caseload. Our gifted teachers have been working with the regular ed teachers and really providing them with ways to enhance and to give more to each lesson. I hope I'm not leaving anyone out. It's been an amazing thing. I've learned a lot, and we have done so much, George and I, trying to get everybody together, but it's amazing how the entire team has come together, grabbed this, and just absolutely run with it. And we are, I must say this, we definitely are in the forefront when it comes to a lot of the different school districts in this area. And that goes for regular ed, it goes for special ed, our gifted educators, the things that we're providing our students and how quickly we were able to do it is just amazing to me. So that's kind of my report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone has.
So I just thank you again, Jenny, and thank you, Dan and Sean. I wanted to open it up. I'll lead Susan for you to direct it there, Mrs. Stern, and what we would, questions from board members about any of these aspects of our online plans.
Yeah, yes, so I do want to echo Ken's appreciation, Sean and Dan and Jenny. It's very comprehensive, and it's just I feel spoiled. I'm getting used to that level of comprehensive work from them all the time. It's kind of how that's going, but this was under some pretty extraordinary measures. So I do want to open it up. Let's see, I'm just kind of looking up at the screen. If anybody would like to jump in with a question, give a quick wave, and I can. All right, Lydia, why don't you go right ahead? Lydia is asking to speak, so unmute, and then go ahead.
Okay. So what an amazing amount of work. It's actually stunning. Thank you so much. So we had a curriculum planning meeting the week that school was closed down, and none of this was what you were working on. And here you are with basically everything up and running. So thank you. I have 3 questions. I'm going to try to be really concise. And should I just say all 3 and then let whoever wants to answer them, or should I go one by one?
Lydia, go ahead with all 3. That's fine.
Okay. So my first one is kind of a really detailed one, and I guess it's for Jenny. How are the psychs able to continue on doing reevals when they're unable to get data, basically do testing and get, behavioral
Yes, it is.
skills done? How are we able to do that?
Okay, so what we're doing is no new evals, but it is the re-evals that are, we're able to do review of records. We're doing review of records to the very best of our ability, getting all the data, being able to reach out to the teachers. And we have a statement that we have worked on, George and I have worked on it, we've got it vetted through our counsel, Tracy Waldman, and it's a COVID, what it's called, the COVID statement, and it goes in the document. And what that will do is allow us to reopen the document and put an addendum in there if we're going to be doing something like an observation, if that were needed to be done, or if it was shown that maybe we wanted to do a functional behavior assessment. Obviously, can't do that without the student in the environment. So that's how we're handling that. But we're making sure that we maintain those timelines. As you know, Lydia, they have not released us from our responsibility to do that. So we're making sure all of our documents will be done in a timely fashion.
Okay, perfect. My next question is really more a comment, and then I guess it would be probably for Dan and Jenny to think about. But so I have a college senior who is devastated by the loss of senior year. And so my thought is a similar thought for our high school seniors, that we probably need to pay special attention to the things, or just acknowledging the loss that they're experiencing. And it may not be the same as the college kids, because they may reconvene as a group again this year, but it doesn't look like the college kids will. And so they're experiencing a tremendous loss over this. So that is more a comment just to keep in mind if we do end up not reconvening for the rest of their senior year. And my other comment, and again, this is sort of anecdotal, so take it for what it's worth, but the students that I'm in contact with, and again, they're college students, so it's maybe not that applicable, but they're finding the Zoom classes are not really the same thing as being there face to face. And the things they're finding most frustrating are that you can't share what you're working on. You can't like share that you're mapping out a chemistry problem or whatever. Those pieces aren't there. So I'm just wondering if the high school students are feeling that same, frustration. I would say it's just frustration that it's really not as easy to learn that way. And I don't know what you're hearing back. And again, it may not be applicable because these are college kids versus maybe high school or middle school. So those are just my comments, and I'll remute and let whoever can answer that or move on or whatever. Okay.
All right, thank you. Yes, speaking about seniors, we certainly, when we get into phase 3, if this looks like this is going to be an extended closure, we'll look at ways that we can try to, for all of our students, make sure that we have planning in place for specific events that happen at the end of the year. I'm thinking about elementary, when you're going and you're having a 5th grade advancement or an 8th grade advancement, or things like baccalaureate and things like that. So when we get into phase 3, we're really going to identify things that are cornerstones of our traditions here at Radnor, and ways that we can try to work around and make it a positive experience for our students. So that's something we certainly have on our minds. As far as Zoom, we are looking at, we currently are not using Zoom. We are exploring Zoom and a couple other providers for synchronous and asynchronous learning. We have been looking at guidance from our solicitor. We have been looking at what best practices for other districts are. We're looking at what providers would give us the most flexibility. We're keeping in line with applicable laws like PA wiretapping. We're trying to take into considerations things like students that are not going to be on when the teacher's on. So if you have a teacher and they say, I'm going to be on at 10 o'clock and I'm going to go and do a lecture, and you only have 15 out of the 25 students in class, It's a challenge to record that class and post it for other students unless you have express written consent from all the students in the class. So we're looking at ways that you can allow teachers and students to interact with each other and have unrecorded, have recorded. And so there's a lot of different nuance to that. Some of the different platforms that are out there allow you to have a preset for a meeting where student video cameras are disabled by the hosts. And so the teacher could disable student video cameras so the students could see the teacher and hear the teacher, and the teacher could hear the student, but you would not have the student's camera necessarily on. The students could ask questions and participate that way. So there's other types of functions where you could have students that their microphone and cameras could be completely disabled. They could see and hear their teacher. They could type into a chat function. Those could be recorded. We're looking at ways that you have unrecorded office hours that are true live streaming for the class. But again, we want to make sure that whatever we do, that our students and our teachers are safe, that we're following applicable laws, that we're doing best practices. And so we have been very careful at going into making sure that whatever the district goes into, that it is going to be effective and that everybody's going to be safe. And so we're in the midst of that right now. We are looking at a couple different providers and are actually beta testing 2 different providers currently. And we anticipate having something shortly that our teachers will be able to use with our students to provide more opportunities for them to interact.
And I guess I would just add to that, just what you talked about before, Lydia. This is unprecedented. I don't ever remember anything like this ever happening. So it will be, if this were to go and, really interfere with all of those things, especially that our seniors are going to do. We are going to be really working with the administrators and all of our teachers as they're reaching out to the students and making sure that we do have as much of a pulse on this as we possibly can have, and provide all the supports and services we can from my office, just to help the students through this. Because, this is, we can't think back and think, oh, this is what we did last time. There was no last time. So it is going to be something moving forward that we really have to look at. And it is a big piece of what George and I are thinking about, because it's always best to plan ahead, kind of plan for the worst and just hope for the best. And that's kind of what we're doing. And we are going to put as many things in place for these kids as we possibly can.
Great, thank you. Is there somebody else who has a question or would like to jump in? Just give a little wave. I'm not seeing anybody. All righty. Oh, I'm sorry, Bradley, go ahead. Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. I have a little bit of a question about phase 4, and I don't mean to be alarmist, but I was thinking back to 2 weeks ago we had a finance committee meeting, and if you go back and watch the video, it was a really normal meeting. No one was talking about what was happening in the world. It was great to hear from the administration just now that even before the governor announced the closure of schools, we heard a little bit about how we were thinking ahead to some extent. And I'm feeling a little sorry that I wasn't thinking ahead more too. When I look back at that meeting. And sure, phase 4 takes us to the possibility of what does it look like if the school year doesn't continue and we have closures for the longer term. And I'm just wondering, what do we need to plan now in case the situation continues through the summer and the fall even? And again, this isn't to be alarmist, but it's within the scope of what are the things that we plan now for September that it would be more responsible to think about what it looks like. Not saying we start looking at those today or tomorrow, but at some point it's worth thinking about.
And I'll jump in and let Sean and Dan jump in as well, but I will jump in, and I think your question is a great question in the sense that this situation has made us all think a little differently in the sense that, we don't know, people keep asking me like I have this answer on when we're going to be back. And I have told people I wouldn't be surprised either way now. I wouldn't be surprised if we are, in fact, back after our spring break. I believe it's April 13th we shared. I wouldn't be surprised if we are back. I wouldn't be surprised if we aren't back. And we've got to be prepared for either of those options. And also, as Bradley, you're saying, beyond that. And one of the things on the agenda tonight are purchases that we have moved forward on that really answer that question into the long term. We're hoping that those purchases will help us for not only this semester, if we should go longer this semester, but those purchases are what will help us through the summer and the fall if for any reason this should continue. I mean, it'll be very hard to play out every option, but at the same time, I think we need to be as prepared as we can, and that purchase really is one of those examples that is going to give us an opportunity to look at this from a much broader standpoint.
Thank you.
Sarah, go ahead. Sarah, go ahead.
Sorry, I actually was waiting to have people, I echo all the sentiments. I think the curriculum for my middle and high schooler seems to be going well. I don't know as much about how it's functioning at the elementary school level, and I would guess that that's a lot of where some of the stress and challenges are for a lot of parents, because there's a lot more hands-on required. My kids are responsible for all their own schoolwork, and I just get my work done. But the question I had was more the financial side. I know we expedited some of the purchases, or we moved up some of the purchases under our 3-year technology plan. If you could just speak to the timing there. I've kind of got my finance committee hat on. Did we move up? I think we just moved up 3rd-year purchases into the 2nd year, but if we just moved them up by a few months. I know.
Yeah, I believe, and I have Dr. McCook next to me here, Byron's here. I believe what we did was what we had left in the next 2 years, essentially, of that 3-year plan. The next 2 years, we moved all of it, I believe, forward. And Byron is nodding as I say that. So I think we moved just about all of it forward.
So we're at the end of the 1st year, and we've done now all the purchasing for the 2nd and 3rd years.
Correct. And when we get to that piece on the agenda, we can talk more about how go ahead.
Well, I would like to clarify that, because we did all the purchasing of the equipment that the district intended to own or lease or whatever we did with it for student use. We still have, so next year's 9th graders, you know, there's a separate plan that we had in place where we have the one-to-one initiative up at the high school, and as each incoming 9th grade comes in, you know, that plan hasn't been executed on because those students aren't 9th graders yet. So we didn't do all the purchasing. When our current 8th graders are 9th graders, we will do another year of, a one-to-one device with our family copay. Correct, Dr. McCook?
Yes, that is correct. Essentially, what will happen is the incoming 9th graders, that money is budgeted for next year's budget. So what we did was we advanced, the acquisition of the 3rd and 4th grade Chromebooks and the iPads for grades K and 2. So in a sense, after this, we would be one-to-one district-wide. So we would be, purchasing the new Surface Go devices for the incoming freshmen in July, when we start the new fiscal year.
And one of the big pieces of it, too, which was part of our plan, was the support for our teachers and our teachers K-8. So a big piece of this also is the technology and support for our teachers, so what they will be able to do remotely K-8. That's a piece that was coming that we did move to the front burner now with this recent purchase.
Yes, the recent purchase now will have every teacher from K to 12 with a Microsoft Surface Pro device. So currently the high school teachers have them, and now we will have the K-8 teachers having the same device as well.
Okay. I want to circle back to devices in a few minutes, but I think, so Sarah, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. And I didn't realize, I apologize. I don't have an agenda in front of me, so I didn't realize that was later on the agenda. So we can
Sure.
talk about that then.
No worries. Amy, did you have something? You had your hand raised or shaked?
Yeah, I pushed that little button in. It's kind of cool. I'm learning. I just wanted to echo some of the things that have been said before. If my notes are correct, looking at this, my calculations actually are correct. essentially the district has built a full-time cyber education program in 15 days. And I can't get over that. I think it's absolutely remarkable. And I just want to extend my profound admiration and appreciation for everybody across the employee spectrum in the district for going way out of your typical zones to do that. And despite circumstances for everybody of various shapes and sizes of being impacted by this situation. So I just think it's extraordinary. Essentially, it's like building a plane as you're flying it, as I heard someone refer to it. And also salute the students and families as well, who without their partnership, this couldn't be done. Clearly, there's going to be some turbulence to keep with the plane analogy, but to think of what's been done over the course essentially of 15 days is remarkable. So I just want to extend my profound appreciation. I think I know every board member feels the same. And I think we're going to come out of this, if there's ever a silver lining, as an even more evolved school district and community than we were before. So who knows, hopefully we'll never need something like this again in our lifetimes. But if we do, I guess that's the silver lining. We've learned a lot and we'll continue to learn a lot. One of the things that I've been concerned about is the mental health and well-being. I feel like there is going to be potentially a collateral impact to all of this based on what's happened with the economy and the isolation of so many people and just the disruption of things that we all rely on as human beings. I think predictability and routine. And I know, Jenny, you referenced some things that you were setting up, but I'm thinking also of some of these strict mandates out there, like no play dates. And it's hard enough on us adults to not be with each other. I don't know about all of you, but I miss the human interaction to the extent that I'm accustomed to it. So I'm just wondering if there are, to what extent you're thinking about trying to help foster that sense of connection and routine, even in more detail maybe than you gave before. Maybe you don't have it at this point, but looking forward, what are the pathways for students and families to be able to express some of the things that are of concern to them, things that they're noticing or anticipating, what channels are open, and is there any way to facilitate a replacement of play dates and child connection across the K through 12 continuum, so that we can try to help in any way we can as a school district with that feeling that could be bubbling up.
Okay, that's really interesting. One of the things I think that we're doing that's going to really help us out, we have, hopefully it's going out tomorrow. We have a newsletter that we're sending out that has a lot of different strategies for parents. I didn't think about the play date thing. Again, just an aside, my daughter was telling me that they had a virtual dinner party with their friends. So they all sat around and they all ate dinner, and I think it was 6 of them, so it was 3 couples, and they had a virtual dinner party on Saturday night. So we could start, George and I could start working with some of our families, and I know Dan and Sean could do the same thing with the principals of the building, and maybe there is a way to start helping them think about things in a different mode so that they can interact with each other in those kind of ways, playing the games. I know some kids are probably already doing it. I wouldn't even know how to go about doing it. But like playing games, even online, so they can like talk to each other and have a little bit of interaction that way. But I have to tell you, Amy, you're right. It's very weird. I took my dog for a walk, and you're walking down the road and people are actually walking away from each other. It's a very different feel. And it is, everyone's still saying hi, but no one's stopping. It is different. I did also, just another aside, talking about like the economic piece of this. again, talking with the social workers, we know that we'll all come back from this, but some families could have very long-standing issues, and we do realize that, and we're already trying to think about how we may be able to help them through those times. So yes, yes and no. Yes, we are thinking about it. That is an excellent idea. George and I will bring that up at our Zoom meeting. Typically our Zoom meeting last week, it had 57 people. I think we're going to have even more of our staff on it with us this time. So we will continue to look at those things. And if you have any ideas, please share them, with us as well. If you hear anything that anyone else is doing, and I can also reach out to the other directors in Chester and Delaware County.
Well, I don't know if the technology supports this, but I was thinking, and forgive me, Sean, I don't remember the name of the program at the elementary level where in the beginning of the day, all the students get together with the classroom teacher and go around the morning greeting or whatever, right? So I don't know if there's a way to replicate that, but anything that could be sort of break through the isolation and resemble some sort of routine that students are accustomed to. And also I was looking at the collaboration and catch-up day, which I think is geared towards staff. And I think is really important because they're human too, and they need a sense of being around one another and talking. But is there any sort of collaboration and catch-up day plans for students that would be developmentally appropriate across K through 12 so that they can feel too like it's community period, for example, at the high school, or it's lunchtime at the middle school, something like that. Maybe they don't need it, but I do hear a lot about this feeling of isolation, and given the levels of anxiety and depression that already exist in our population, I'm concerned that what's going on right now is only going to exacerbate that. So is there anything we can be doing proactively in addition to what we're already doing to try to get our arms around that and prepare for what might be coming depending on how long this goes?
Yeah, absolutely. I can speak to a couple things. One, the collaboration and catch-up day, I think is meant for both staff and students, and to some degree parents, to give staff an opportunity for professional development and collaboration. We want to build in some office hour time on those days so students can hopefully virtually discuss things live with their teacher. So that's a great opportunity for those kind of things you're talking about. So that day is really meant to capture to some degree the SDL that people need, whether you're a student, you're a teacher, you're a parent, you just need a break from helping your child all day, if they're younger especially. And then our counselors and our principals have been working together. They're not teaching classes right now, so what they're doing is they're trying to work on things like this to support students. And a number of ideas have been floated out there about sending videos of them reading stories, or them running groups, things like that. Like you mentioned, the responsive classroom practices. So it's things like that, as we mentioned earlier, it feels like we've been doing this for 4 weeks, but it's only day 4. So we're still very much working on some of the ideas you had. And we just shared an article yesterday with staff about maintaining your own social emotional health and trying to balance all these uncertainties out. So I think we've really just brushed the surface, and I'm hoping by the next time we speak, you'll hear a lot more about how we're supporting kids socially and emotionally.
Great.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who's has a question or anything to share or ask? Liz, go ahead. Sure.
There you go. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Along the lines of what Amy was saying, I think first of all, I echo what everyone has said, and just great gratitude for all you have done and what you've accomplished in such a short time. I will say that video connection that my one son is in middle school, having Dr. Woodlick out there with that video in the morning, it really provided that human touch, and I think it went a really long way. And along the lines in terms of the need, I know when we're looking at synchronous learning, maybe some teachers will use it, some teachers won't, but I was just in a meeting with a leader And now we were using Zoom, but we ended up, there was 12 people in the meeting, and we ended up in a breakout session. So the meeting leader did a breakout session, and we had 4 groups of 3. And I couldn't believe how seamless it went. And they just touched a button, hit a button, and we were all in our breakout sessions and had a very robust discussion about the material. And then he could messenger us, and then we went right back into the group discussion. And just a comment that, I'm sure that Mr. Bechtel, when you're looking at what devices to use or what programs to use, that kind of breakout, I think, can kind of create a little bit of normalcy for the kids when they are in a class that, potentially they're talking about some literature, they need some discussion. It really went such a long way to feel that connection and to feel in some weird way, some normalcy that we could talk about something together from our homes. So just really more a comment, and that I think there are applications out there that we could maybe move towards that should we find ourselves in phase 3.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Mrs. Duffy. We are looking at that, and as I said earlier, we do see value in having opportunities for students to interact with their teachers and having synchronous learning. We just want to make sure that when we're moving forward, whatever we go with, that we're being safe and smart about it. And so we are currently looking at 2 different providers. One of them is Zoom. We want to make sure that they integrate seamlessly with Schoology, that we have the proper professional development for our teachers, how to use it, and that we set class norms for students and parents as to what to expect when they go in there. So we are certainly looking at that, and we've got 2 different applications that we're looking at. So that's something that we have been actively working on during our phase 2, and we're looking to roll out during phase 3. So hopefully sooner rather than later. I don't want to put a definitive time limit on it, but we are currently looking at that right now.
Dan, would it be, and Sean, would some aspects of phase 3 begin as early as next week, some of those aspects? I know they're not necessarily, the phases aren't by week, but would some aspects of that come into play as early as next week?
Yes, and I'll let Sean jump in here as well. So we will be starting the collaboration and catch-up day next week, and that will be an opportunity for office hours for teachers. Students will have a chance to work on work. Teachers will collaborate, but we will have office hours for teachers to support their students. So that's something that was we're working on in phase 3 that we are looking to launch for next week, and we'll have a communication out this week to teachers, parents, and students about that. Trying to see what I got to pull up the phases. Let me see. We're looking in the next week or 2 to have our synchronous streaming or asynchronous streaming options open for students and teachers. Again, I can't give you a firm date on that. We are working through some of the different aspects of 2 different programs right now, and we just want to make sure that whichever one we decide is going to give us the be the best fit for Radnor using our LMS, and that once we select that, making sure that we provide quality professional development for our teachers to ensure that they're able to use it effectively. So that's something that could be in place by next week, but certainly, as soon as we can get it up, we will, but that will definitely be something that could be in place by next week.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else?
If I could quickly, to touch on Ms. Duffy's comments and Ms. Goldman's comments, those phases there really are focused, as we said earlier, on the academic side of things. But I think a lot of the gist of what the points that are being made is that to try to build some community during this time. So we do know in the communications office, we're already working on ideas to engage our students in collaborative opportunities of sharing things out through our social media and elsewhere. We're working on a video right now to maybe have some parents and students participate in a video sharing kind of experience So I think we recognize not only do we need to communicate about the extended closure and all the kind of operational things that are necessary around this time, but we want to keep the spirit of PR and good vibes and things within the district if possible during this time remotely. So just to address that, we are thinking, at least in our office, how we could build that community during this kind of time of distance.
And I just want to just say too, just go with that, Michael, too. Just everybody keep in mind too, and I'm just looking at my kids. You know, our kids have been pretty good about communicating with other kids through Fortnite, through other games they're playing. I was watching my daughter. I know, I'm just saying the reality. So as we focus on the academic programs, we need to realize too that you know, our kids and our parents, and I'm sure they're going to realize, do have ways that they connect with one another through technology and have been, and I'm sure that is going to be continuing through this time of school closure.
Actually, what Michael said actually prompted a question in my head, if I may. Specials like chorus, art, gym, are those things that are somehow being delivered to students as a way to break up the sort of traditional academic courses?
Sean, can you jump in on that one?
Yeah, absolutely. Our specialists have been asked to do as much as our teachers have been asked. So if they teach in the last 2 weeks, for example, if they teach second grade twice, they're putting together lessons for each of the specials 2 times, and they're pushing that out through Schoology as well. Many of them are going beyond that and created additional things to push out through Schoology. So yeah, we want them to be very much involved. You know, that's part of the full experience at school. You know, it's not just all the 4 core areas. There's more to, you know, coming to school and participating in art, music, library, things like that. So yeah, we want those things to continue fully. And although they look differently online, that's certainly something we're asking our teachers to do.
Okay, great. So a couple of things. I thank you, everyone. I don't want to belabor it, but I do certainly want to reinforce the gratitude that everyone is expressing. So I think, Amy, you referenced it. You know, basically they've pulled together an online learning platform in, you know, a matter of days, weeks, and, you know, some of the foresight here. The preparation in phase 1, I just want to set some expectations out there. The feedback or the question that I've had a couple of people reach out to me about is, you know, there are parents in the elementary school who are very anxious to have their kids have access to some online learning as well. So, and I know that we, you know, pretty much as quickly as we could humanly have done it, 4 days after the governor closed the schools, the 4th day of work, you were ordering devices. So it was very, you know, proactive on the part of the administration. But I do want to talk, you know, if you could just give a sense of what's that timing maybe going to look like, because those parents that's what I've heard from some parents about that.
So right now, this week, we have been, and I'll let Dr. McCook jump in too here, but we have been focused on getting the devices out to our 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. Some of our thinking was that if a household has, you know, multiple children, that getting the device to a 5th, 6th, or 7th, or 8th would then relieve that and actually have more devices available by household. We have not yet figured out exactly how that deployment for kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd would look because we wanted to see how many devices we have. Part of it is we'd be waiting on the order. Part of it we would also be dependent on our current distribution and how that current distribution goes, what devices we have. So we're hoping that pressure will be relieved knowing that everyone has a computer as of now. Now this week, if you're a family that has more than one child, and hopefully if the child is 5th, 6th, or 7th, or 8th grade, one of them, you know, high school already has a device. Now we've got 5th through 8th. I think we're hopefully helping those younger years as well with the Chromebook right now. Next week, the end of this week, we're going to start looking at what type of distribution we could provide and when could we provide it for K through 4th grade, excuse me. Dr. McCook, Brian, does that make sense?
Yes. Currently, as Mr. Batchelor mentioned, you know, our plans are already underway to deploy technology for grades 5 through 8, and that already began for this week. We are looking at what we're going to do for grades K through 3. That's going to need some further collaboration with the curriculum department, to make sure that we have things aligned correctly. Those devices have been ordered. We do have some existing Chromebooks that we have now that students are using. We are in a 2-student to 1 iPad deployment right now in grades K through 2. With the new order that we've placed, it would go to 1-to-1. As a matter of fact, just as this board meeting is going on, I've been back and forth with emails to our Apple rep, and it looks like some of those devices are going to begin shipping a little sooner than what we thought. We've got some logistics to work out because things are changing rapidly, and in some further collaboration, and when we get a really good feel for when those devices are going to ship, and then to also look at how we would go through the process of choosing which students would receive what device. We do have to physically assign each device to a student to make sure that we can track them, so that we know who has what district assets. So that should be forthcoming. And if I could just take a moment, I would like to just send out a real deep sense of gratitude and thanks to the technology department. These individuals have been working diligently. They've been very flexible, very agile. As someone mentioned earlier, it's almost sometimes it feels like we were building a plane as we were flying it. And these individuals have stepped up, and they have been just absolutely tremendous. And so I owe them a deep sense of gratitude and thanks for all that they've been doing.
Well, thank you. So, Dr. McCook, thank you. I mean, this is certainly a way to be, it's a long way away, but it is certainly a way to end your career here in Radnor. This is one for the memory books. As you're getting these devices and figuring out how you're going to deploy them to the K through 2, K through 3 grades, one of the things that I know needs to happen is you still have to keep all your protocols in place. You referenced making sure that we know who has which device and all those things, and we still have our user agreements and our insurance agreements. I mean, there's still a lot of work. And then I do know that when you receive in new devices, there's actual work that's done to each device to upload software and all that. I'm saying this because I know that there's a lot of manpower involved in that. And as you're looking at your resources within your technology department who are already doing yeoman's work, I guess I'm just going to say this to everybody who's listening to the board. I'm going to trust Ken. You will come to the board if you feel like you need additional resources to be able to get that manpower done, because the devices are here, but there's only so many hours in a day and so many people who we have on staff currently to ready those devices for use by the district. So I'm kind of proactively putting it out there. I think we all need to know and recognize that the district may need to come to the board for some resources, financial resources, to make sure we have the manpower to do that work.
Thank you.
Yeah. So enough about those devices. I do know people, parents, that's what parents have been asking me about that. I do want to ask a little bit about this attendance protocol. Is it done? How's that being conducted? And the reason I ask is I think there's value in taking attendance. I know that you got some positive responses and some not positive responses about that. I think there's value in giving some sense of structure to the kids. But I'm just wondering how you're implementing it. If you have 3 kids in a family, are they all supposed to be signing in for attendance at the time that school starts every day? Or how's that working? What's the plan there?
Sure, I'll let Sean jump in and Dan jump in and to share how we're handling the attendance.
I can talk about the elementary level. Again, this is only 2 days young, so it already changed a little bit. Because the first way required a Microsoft login. We changed that. So in elementary, a child would, at any time between the start of the day and 3 p.m., we ask that they log their attendance by going on to their teacher's course. At the top of the course, there's a little clipboard that says, start here, make sure that you log your attendance. They click that there's like a little clipboard icon, and it asks them to put their first name, last name. They choose their teacher from the list, and they write here, and they submit. And what that does, that form populates an Excel spreadsheet on the back end. and then the attendance secretary of each school pulls that Excel spreadsheet, logs the attendance like they would any normal way, and then communicates the attendance back to teachers and the principal. And then if students are not logging in or not checking Schoology, the teachers are then reaching out to the parents and offering support. So it's one way of saying, yes, we're checking to see that they're present, they're doing things, but also it's giving us a conduit to finding out who's, engaging in the content directly and who's not.
Okay.
And some parents, the Schoology learning curve at the elementary has been much greater than at the secondary level, because secondary has been using it during the school day. And for elementary teachers, so much has been relying on them being in front of the children directly. And, kindergarten or first, second grader, a learning management system, they're still trying to learn in the real world, not just online. So the learning curve for teachers has been a big one. But that's how the attendance piece works. And the first day was a little bit rocky. I would say we had solid 80%, had no problem. And then we made some adjustments to the form, and today was much better. So so far that's what it looks like at the elementary.
I have to say, I think a B on the first day is, an 80 on the first day of the test is pretty good, with no instruction, no quiz. That's an 80 is pretty good, Sean. So thank you. Dan, I don't know if you want to jump in about secondary level.
Sure. At the secondary level, it's very similar. The difference is that we have cohort classes set up. So the class of 2020 for seniors will go into their class and they will mark themselves present. The juniors will go into their class, etc. So the attendance secretaries at the middle school and the high school collect this data. One of the things that Sean alluded to is we're using this as a safety net. So the high school and the middle school, the attendance secretary is sending it to assistant principals who are monitoring this for trends. We're running individual daily absence reports, but then we're also monitoring absences from the date that we started online moving forward. And weekly, we're going to have the guidance counselors, social workers, assistant principals meeting at the high school to look at this list, and then they will be reaching out to individual students that are showing up. They're showing up on these lists for non-attendance. They'll be looping in special ed case managers or 504 case managers, and we'll be reaching out to make sure that we didn't have a family that that didn't reach out, that needed a device, or that they are having issues with their internet where we can assist them. So really using this as a safety net for our guidance counselors and our social workers and our special ed and 504 case managers to support students in need. So it's going to kind of serving a dual purpose for us.
Okay, great. Thank you. Big fan of the collaboration and catch-up days. I think everybody's going to catch their breath. And as crazy as it sounds, I think we're going to be ready for spring break by the time it comes. I think that everyone is going to need to regroup. Parents who have been, homeschooling their students for several weeks are going to need a break. Teachers, and it will give you, hopefully give everybody a chance to, regroup and catch their breath. I guess that's the best way I can think to say that.
Can I jump in there too?
Sure,
On the
of course.
topic of spring break, and because I've also just monitoring the email, and I've gotten a couple of questions, about that and about spring break. So our plan and what we've tried to do as a district is we've tried to put ourselves in a position that we could have as many options available to ourselves to make sure that we would keep instruction moving forward as a district. So we took those first 3 days for our students were off, but they were professional development days, what we call Act 80 days for our teachers. So those days in the state's eyes and how much the state is counting or not counting, and that's a whole another debate that we've all been trying to figure out. And I don't mean that as a criticism. This is a ever-evolving, changing time. As the governor closes the schools, what does that mean for makeup days? For us right now, we have been moving our instructional program forward. So when I use those words, I'm saying from the vantage point as we look to report to the state, we're looking at ending our school year as of now at the same time, because our teachers have been engaged through professional development for those 3 days. Then they have been engaged teaching, starting last week and this week, and they'll be teaching for this week and next week. And then we have spring break, and we're planning to have our current spring break because we've been moving the instruction forward. As of now, our thinking is that, Susan, as you were just sharing, I think everyone's going to need a break after 2 full weeks of being online. I think that that break will be well timed. It also keeps us on track and on schedule. If we wanted to look at a day-for-day situation, if we decided to use spring break, let's say we decided to teach on Monday or Tuesday, we would then have to have a discussion about possibly ending the school year earlier, or having a discussion of we would be, if we want to continue beyond the date that we currently have for the end of the school year, compensating our teachers and our support staff for those additional days beyond what we have budgeted for this year. So, we are at a point where we have every availability is open to us as a district. Should we as a board want to come together a month from now and talk about what we want to do in June, we can certainly do that. We are on track, though, right now, both in the eyes of what we would report to the state and at what we would also, as we look at our budget, that we are keeping our educational program moving and keeping our calendar the same right now. And I hope that makes sense to everyone, how I've explained it. I'm trying to also answer some of the questions I'm seeing. Just had 1 or 2 questions about that from parents about that understanding of spring break and why is it off.
Okay, got it. A couple of other things in there in no particular order. So I see that you're talking about the 339 plan information collection. I sincerely hope that while I agree with, the principles of the 339 plan and learning for the future and I forget the casual way we call that, college and career ready. I certainly hope that PDE and the state take a flexible view on how we're going to meet all of the pieces of evidence that are supposed to be in every student's folder every year around college and career readiness opportunities. That I hope there's some, just seeing that there, I hope that there's some flexibility around that one. It's interesting. We started this month with a day to unplug and a day to connect as a family. Who could ever imagine that by the end of March, we would be saying to every family, connect, get online, and that these families were supposed to spend a day unplugging and connecting with their family, and now every day, all day, with your children while you try to do the rest of your life and your work. Hats off to all of you, by the way. My children are grown. My youngest is in college. I'm spending my days with a 2-month-old whose life is all around, is she eating and sleeping? To think right now that there's a group of you out there who are teaching your children and trying to work at your careers, I'm blown away. I'm blown away. There was one other thing I did have a question about. No, I think it was around the act, the 3.3. I do want to put food for thought out there. I shared this story with Ken. I shared it with the board. I missed a month of school when I was in 6th grade. The blizzard of '78 shut down New England. And we had a snowstorm. We'd been out for a week. We came back for half a day. They sent us home. We had a blizzard, and we went back to school February 27th. So I've actually lived a life where I missed a chunk of school. We did not do online learning. And my cousins and I come from a big family in Massachusetts, and my cousins and I are kind of reminiscing and connecting on Facebook. I think it is great, Jenny, that we are thinking about their social emotional health, and I really commend you and George for working with your social workers and the outreach. But I do want to just kind of put out there, we can take the attitude that a month of our kids may be sleeping in, which is the reason I was asking about the protocol of attendance. You know, if we don't have to do attendance at 7:30 or 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning, you know, there may be a group of our children who are actually going to benefit from not, you know, from getting additional sleep and from being able to, you know, play some board games and have some downtime and play in their yards. And yes, I know we can't have play dates, but some families like the Bachelors have their own play date. You know, you have your own team of kids to play with. So this is a very uncertain time, but I do think that there's an opportunity here for something else to come from it. And it doesn't have to all be negative and stressful. And, you know, our PSSAs have been canceled this year. Our Keystones have been canceled this year. All of a sudden, our teachers have an opportunity to teach, and they don't have to concern themselves with standardized tests. It's going to be really interesting to see what that might look like for our kids and what learning might look like this for the rest of this year without some of the constraints that we've all become very accustomed to. I put that out there with great appreciation for everything that you're doing and just balancing it with, you know, I missed a month, life went on, we all survived. And I think there's something to be said for us instilling that confidence in our children that this is all going to be okay. And if their learning doesn't go exactly the way we thought it was going to go this year, they can still all be okay. So, and I really appreciate all of the work that we're doing to have this be as close as possible to learning, and so that all of our kids can get what they need, and all the efforts everybody's doing on it. So that was kind of my 2 cents on the thing. Oh, Nancy, I'm sorry. Jump in, please.
I just had a quick clarification comment. Mr. Batchelor, you had mentioned that we still plan on ending the school year as expected, and I know we have these 4 floating days. Is it with the original calendar that incorporated the 4 days, or taking the 4 days, you know, ending shorter?
So as of now, and that's something we would need to talk about at the end of our April meeting as a board, but as of now, based on the instruction that we are doing online, we would not need those additional 4 days. So those additional 4 days that were built in for snow, that before all this started, we were saying that we would be able to give back those 4 days. We are still in a position to potentially give back those 4 days.
Okay, are there any more questions? We're going to move on to our second presentation, which is, you know, Mr. Bradley mentioned this earlier, you know, we have the work of the business the work of the district to still do the business. And this special education plan was something that, I think, Lydia, you mentioned, this was actually the original plan for the curriculum meeting for March. So we're going to do, Jenny, you're going to do this presentation, right, of your special education plan that's 2020 through June 30th of 23, correct?
That is correct, yes.
All righty. Do you take it away?
And I'll just give Jenny, before she begins, just a little intro. And this is, again, one of those things that we are, you know, we got to move forward with some pieces of our programming. Jenny's going to share an overview of that plan tonight, and there does not need to be any board action on this tonight. The board action, you know, could be as soon as next month. We could also even delay it beyond that if we had to, but Jenny wanted to give time for everyone to give feedback, so I'll turn it over to you, Jenny.
Okay, thanks so much. So the special ed plan, there's 2 documents. This is just a PowerPoint I did quickly just to go over some of the key points, because I believe the plan itself is 40-some pages. So I just want to go over the most important pieces of this. The special education plan happens, we have to look at it every 3 years. So this is our 3rd year. And what do? Do I just say, change, thank you. Okay, I'll just say.
Yeah, Jenny, just keep letting Chris know when you want him to move the pages forward.
Got it. So the plan is comprised of these areas. I'm only really going to spend most of my time talking about our goals and a little bit on disproportionality because that's a new piece of the special ed plan that we never did before. But the profile is just basically who we are. Core Foundations comprises of a bunch of different aspects that I will go over, as does the assurance. And then the district level plan, that's where the goals are. And that's, there's going to be like 3 or 4 goals that I really want to go over in this PowerPoint. So if you just change that for me, Chris. So how this starts is we have a stakeholder meeting, and we held that. And we had some discussions and just really talked about different pieces of what it is in our district, what we saw that we would like to change. We had regular ed teachers, we had special ed teachers, we had some board members, we had parents, and myself and George were there, as well as Ken and our directors of student learning. And what we really want to do is just look at all the different pieces that maybe we want to change, making our district even better in meeting the needs of our special ed students. So if you want to change that again, thank you. So the core foundations are comprised of all of these different things. The first thing is the identification method. Our identification of special education students has not changed. So that particular area of the our special ed plan really had no changes. The enrollment, looking at our non-resident oversight, again, that didn't really change. The one piece that really is a brand new piece is the disproportionality, and I will talk about that. That'll be up on the next slide. We also look at the least restrictive environment as a piece that we're always trying to maintain here in Radnor. We look at our behavior supports, and again, looking at the intensive interagency, looking at trying to make sure that we're ensuring FAPE for the students in our district. So if you just want to go ahead and change it, Chris, thank you. So disproportionality, this is a calculation that PDE came up with, and this is the first year for this particular piece to be part of any plan. What they did is they looked at all of these different aspects of who we are as a district, and they made the determination of finding out who was significantly disproportionate in different areas. Radnor came out to be significantly disproportionate in the area of our Black students that have been diagnosed or have a diagnosis of specific learning disability. And the calculation is this: there's the risk, the comparison, and then you come up with the risk ratio. So what they did is they looked at the number of identified Black students in our district and the number of the Black students that are in our LEA, our district as a whole. And that gave us the likelihood of the identification in a target race. The comparison was looking at the number of special education in all other races and the number of all other races in the LEA. And that was the likelihood of the identification in all other races. And then you divide the two by each other and you come up with the risk ratio. So on the next slide, that is the significant disproportionality for Radnor Township School District. This is from the data of 2017-18 school year. Our risk ratio ended up being 4.51, and my disproportionality folder is back at my office, but I believe if it was anything over a 3.4, it was considered significantly disproportionate. So because Radnor was disproportionate, what we needed to do, which is our next slide, was take 15% of the IDEA flow-through dollars and come up with a plan. And George and I worked on this plan. This all started back in May, of how we could utilize these funds to make sure that we're doing early intervening activities for our students. So what we did was we looked at reading intervention programs K through 8. We looked at professional development for our staff in these programs. We looked at some academic math intervention programs. We did some executive functioning programs, and we did a professional development for all of our staff. We just concluded that at our last professional development day, which was, I believe, in February. We're looking at doing professional development for the MTSS plan as it comes through. And again, we started an after-school tutoring program with a focus on ELA. It unfortunately is not happening right now, but we're looking to have that continue. So we took this 15%, which ended up coming to about $72,000. And all of those funds were put into this so that we could continue to look and work with that population and make sure that we're providing the early intervening and MTSS strategies that will hopefully start supporting our students before we find them in need of special education. So that's what we did as a district. And I said, this is a brand new area of special education plans. And for this particular school year, 17-18 for Radnor, because you're always a couple years behind, we found that we were found to be disproportionate in this area, but we're working through it, and this is the plan to do that. So moving on to the next slide, we have to look at the facilities in Radnor, and in our boundaries. We have St. Edmunds, and we also have the village, which is now called Gemma. Again, our LRE facilities that we have sent some of our students to that have significant needs are listed, and we always have to keep track of where all of these students do attend school and the numbers of students that attend outside of our facility.
Jenny, I'm so sorry to interrupt. LRE, that's the least restrictive environment?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
If you could just quickly explain that. Thank you. It's
So
Susan.
Yes, least restrictive facilities. What we're always trying to do is trying to keep our students in the least restrictive, meaning with as many typical peers as we possibly can. There are students that are here in Radnor, either live in St. Ed's or live with families in our district that have needs that are so significant that they cannot be educated in a free and appropriate public education within our schools. And these are the facilities we use. And again, that would be least restrictive environment facilities that we would use. The most restrictive environment is when you do what we call instruction in the home. That's when students are isolated completely from everyone and instructed in their home without access to other students. So these are the facilities that we currently use at Radnor for the students that we educate. Does that make sense?
Yes, can you just say what HMS is and CADES?
Okay, so that's CADES is George Crothers School. HMS, you see that becomes a word to me. I cannot remember what that stands for. It is a facility that is just a special education facility. It's a school, just like Melmark or Overbrook, or even like the DCIU schools that are just special education students receive their education there. And I cannot remember what it stands for. I apologize. So the next slide.
It's Jenny, I'm sorry, this is Sarah. Can I ask you a quick question? There were a couple of public high schools listed there. I think it was Haverford High School and Strathaven. Is it that they have some type of program that we don't, we would send our students to another public school?
Correct. They have a program that is run by the DCIU. So I'm trying to, the one would be a hearing program, and the other one, I believe, is a life skills MDS, multiple disabilities classroom. But they're located within the high school, kind of like the
Ithan.
program we have at Ithan for the
Okay.
language support. Correct.
Got it. Okay, that's why I was just wondering, but I wanted to make sure
Sure.
I understood that. Thanks.
So our district level plan.
I'm sorry, may I ask a question too? Do you want us to hold our questions until the end, or?
Yeah, go right ahead. Go right ahead.
On that page with facilities, LRE again stands for?
Least restrictive
Oh, right,
environment.
Okay.
Right.
I heard that, that rings a bell. And I had questions on the previous slides, but if you want to go through your whole thing, I can wait until the end. That's what I was initially intending to do. So, but I'll go by whatever you think is most helpful.
Yeah, we can go back. I'm fine with that. To the next one then, Amy?
It was about the disproportionality.
Sure. One more back, Chris, please. Okay, here.
So my questions about the disproportionality were, and maybe this is information you can't disclose, but there were numbers that went into the calculation for the disproportionality. Is that something that's appropriate to disclose, just to get a sense of how many students are affected by this disproportionality relative to our overall population of students? Is that not appropriate to disclose?
I would have to look at that just to make sure. I would have to look at that. This is the calculation that is used. So this is publicized, how they come up with it, because I personally wanted to understand exactly how they came up with that as a fact for us. There were some districts that were found to be disproportionate for finding that there were, I think it was Garnet Valley. I was speaking with her not too long ago. She was found to be disproportionate with white students with SLD. So, and it just depends. There was there's another whole piece where they're doing it now in disproportionality with discipline. So they're looking at discipline and the students that are being disciplined, meaning suspended, internal suspension, or external, being suspended outside of school. So there's different things that they're looking at for districts in disproportionality.
And we could provide those.
Are you talking about the state or the federal government?
When you say for the state, for this right here, it's for the state. So it's us compared to, it comes from the federal government, but I believe our numbers were compared to the numbers in Pennsylvania.
Okay, but the accountability, because it's IDEA, is on
it comes from the federal government, correct? And it came down from the federal government to us in May, and but I believe our numbers are in looking to compare to other people, other districts in the state of Pennsylvania, not in America.
Okay, and two more questions about it. Number one, how long would you expect it to take to find out if these interventions you've listed here on one of the pages of the presentation actually are making a difference?
So typically interventions that get put in place, especially when you're talking about reading and professional development, these typically take 2-3 years to make sure. I have to tell you, I was very upset that our after-school tutoring program obviously is not happening now because it was going along so well. The students were coming, they were receiving the instruction, and the teachers' feedback that we had received, it started in January, was really good feedback. But I realized from January to where we have now stopped it, the data that I wanted to pull for that isn't going to be very significant. And I'm going to want to hopefully continue that as we come back to school. But typically when you put an intervention in place, it takes 2 to 3 years.
My last question on it is, of those interventions, I don't know if this is appropriate, but it occurs to me, that perhaps there's some family supports perhaps that could be offered so that it's not just the school district, but maybe there's something in the home environment that could be supported to help these students?
We could definitely look into that. A lot of what we were finding because of being, we wanted to do the early intervening, and I really think through our MTSS, which is something we really wanted to get up and running for this year coming up, and I'm sure we're still going to do it. But we were really leading the charge on that until this latest thing just came up with us trying to make sure everyone's online. MTSS, in my belief, and I believe Sean and Dan and George, because we're all working together on this, we all feel that that is the support system that's really going to assist us to make sure that we're looking at our tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 supports in the schools in a very, just a very overall level where everyone is involved in it. And we're looking at data and making really strong data decisions when it comes to figuring out what our students need at different times in their learning careers. That's where I think, and I believe that's what a lot of the people that we've been working with MTSS, I really think that that is the piece that's going to help us out a lot, along with the programs, the research-based programs, and getting our teachers the professional development to provide the support to our students in those areas. But working, again, with families, absolutely. We can continue to look at some of those different things, but for the IDEA flow-through dollars, that wasn't part of what we did at this particular point.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, is that good? Okay, so I think we were on,
yep.
Maybe I'll stop after each slide, see if there's any questions.
No, Jen, why don't you try to go through a few of them? I apologize. I really just wanted to clarify what LEA was, and that was good that was kind of your first section. Now this is the next section. Maybe we can get through this section and then ask questions at the end of this. Great. Perfect.
Right. These are the goals. So what we have to do as a district is we don't get to choose the area. It's on everyone's special ed plan. So all areas are listed. We have to do goals for autism, goals for behavior, goals for paraprofessionals, goals for reading, and goals for transition. So with autism, which would be our next slide. Thank you. There's 3 goals that they told us that we had to come up with. So George and I looked at this and we decided just to continue to develop the common understanding of the best practice for instructional strategies. Again, this is looking at instructional strategies, looking at programming for our students on the spectrum of autism. Continue to develop a knowledge of differentiated instruction for students on the spectrum with autism. And again, to continue to develop an understanding of the assessment tools for students with autism. So this is something that we're going to be working on and continuing to work with our teachers to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the students that come to us with autism. Anybody have any questions about that? You can later too. Next slide.
Sunny, actually, I have a quick question on that. I know in some of the stakeholder meetings that one of the key areas was inclusion, and I know it's in the detailed. I just wanted to make sure that it's incorporated in the goals identified for autism.
So for inclusion, I believe we have that, we have a whole piece on inclusion in our plan. I didn't go over it. Our plan is 40.
I wanted to make sure that everyone else was aware of that too, because that was a key piece that we had talked about.
Yeah, in the least restrictive environment and our inclusion piece, we definitely talked about that. This particular, the goals here is looking at some of our classes that we are providing for our students that are significant and have very significant needs. We're trying to build a structure in our buildings to be able to bring students and have them stay with us. Right now we have a classroom in Wayne. So when we're having our early intervention meetings, which is for our younger students, they're coming in and being able to have a classroom that can support their needs as they grow with the peers and the people that live, you know, in their neighborhoods, and to be with typical peers during the school day. That's a big piece of what this whole goal is about for autism, trying to make sure that the programs will support these students with these significant needs within their learning environment within our school district.
Great, thank you.
Sure. So our next one is behavior support. And again, this has a lot to do with MTSS. We're looking at developing a common language and understanding of our social emotional learners and the curriculum and the multi-tiered behavioral interventions that we'd like to have in place K through 12. To look at also goal 2 is looking at the assessment and develop a common system for assessment of growth with students with the social, emotional, and behavioral challenges. And then ongoing support to review and analyze the common language and understanding of safety cares, QBC, and positive action. And QBC is qualitative behavioral competencies. So that is a program where we've gotten staff trained just this year, where it is very much like our safety cares program, but it stops short of the physical intervention, any of the restraint intervention. It really goes with the antecedent strategies, working with students that have behavioral, sensory type needs, and how to give our teachers and our paraeducators the strategies to work with these students. So that's for our behavior support. And our next area is working with our paraprofessionals. And because our paraprofessionals work with students, we felt that to continue to having them be trained in the areas of QBC. And again, they will be trained with the qualitative behavior competencies, just as our teachers will be. And that is assisting them with strategies. Some of our paraprofessionals will need to have ongoing safety care training depending on the students that they work with, and always training on the positive behavior support plans, which is the PBSP, that our students have throughout the learning environment. And a lot of our paraprofessionals are the key person to provide the strategies during the day, and also give them the reinforcement as they continue to make good choices. So that's the training for our paraprofessionals. Next slide, sorry. Okay, reading. So we have some reading areas that we want to look at. And again, our special education teachers, just to continue to receive ongoing training and in the research-based reading strategies and programs. Every year, we're constantly looking to upgrade, looking into other programs that may work for our students. And this year was no different, and it won't be in the years to come. We need to continue to do that. Special education teachers are also trained in modifying core curriculum. And Nancy, this has something also to do with our teachers being highly trained to assist our students by modifying and working with them in the core area curricular reading classes. And goal 3 is to ensure that all special education replacement and supplemental programs are research-based, and that we are constantly aligning them and making sure that they are aligned to our state standards. And our last slide, my last slide, is transition. So this is indicator 13, and it just so happened this year was our year to be trained by DCIU in indicator 13 and transition. These are for students age 14 and above, and it's this whole program through DCIU, which was just this kind of coincided, and she will be back again next year to continue to work with our teachers, our support person from the DCIU. So we want parents and students to have an understanding of their educational opportunities and to meet their post-secondary goals. Our case managers, school counselors, LEAs need to be made aware of opportunities, services, and programs to assist and just look at everything our students need. And finally, we need to make sure that our IEPs are structured in such a way that they are providing everything that our entire staff needs to see and our parents and our students need to understand as they transition from our school age students into life after school here at Radnor. So those are the 3 areas that we're looking at to become better with transitions. And just like I said, luckily we were Indicator 13 trained this year. It started, and it will continue through next year with our help from the DCIU. I think that's it.
Jenny,
Okay.
I have may I ask
Wait,
a
and-
question or two? Or Susan?
I'm sorry, I can't see the screen to see. I want to be able to, Chris, can we go back to the screen so we can see everybody, just so that I can get a sense of, if there's board members who have questions, we can kind of take them one at a time. So who was that who wanted to ask a question? Who is that? Oh, Amy. All right, well, hang on just a second, because I know you've asked a few just so far. Is there anybody else who had questions? Okay, I see Bradley raising his hand. Amy, let's let Bradley go ahead, and then we're going to have a month to reach out, or more, to reach out to Jenny. But Bradley, why don't you go ahead?
Sure. This question follows from Mrs. Monahan's a little bit, and this is something that we've talked about before. Not just having students with special learning needs incorporated in the classroom, but more about what it looks like for them to be part of the school community, and where I'd like to hear a little bit more about where you have this in the plan, and I know I've mentioned this to you before, is what does it look like to give education not just to our general ed teachers, but to all of the students who are in classes who are general ed students, so that they are creating an environment as a school that is welcoming and inclusive and fully integrated for students who have special learning needs. And I won't call it parent training, but what also, where in this plan, if anywhere, are there provisions for parent education to help with parents of students who are neurotypical understand that there may be students who are not neurotypical in their students' classes, and so that everybody's on the same page about being one community.
So that is not part of what PDE puts in front of us. It's something that we're supposed to follow. So that is not part of what they do. It is a part of what we're supposed to do as directors and being in charge of the special ed community. So I do, and I know you know this, I do have trainings, like you said, for the special education parents. And we try to do that twice a year. We bring things in, we talk to them about all the different supports and services that we do have. It is, and I've seen it happen in our buildings, our school counselors have gone into classrooms, have spoken in smaller groups with classrooms with students that, have different needs, and make those, connections with the neurotypical students to understand their classmates. So I know that has gone on in many different classes on a kind of case-by-case basis. We have brought our general education teachers in. I was very excited when we were able to have all of our general education teachers involved in a training just in February with Peg Dawson, trying to understand executive functioning and what it looks like. I mean, not only for special ed students, but also for the regular ed students. But I think it really opened up a lot of their eyes. I got a lot of great feedback from my general education teachers that reached out to me afterwards. So, I definitely hear what you're saying, just trying to make the whole community understand that. And I can work with the, our group of parents, the Radnor Committee for Special Ed. I meet with them regularly and try to, build that bridge with them. I was lucky enough not too long ago to be able to go over to the middle school and see one of our students participating in a gym activity or a sporting activity. I don't give too much away, but it was really a great thing to see. It just showed that he is completely a part of that school, that team, and just the interactions that I could witness, and everyone that was watching this particular sporting activity with all of the kids working together. It was really something to see. So, I definitely hear what you're saying. It is something that comes about, but I think the main way it comes about, it's almost through the children. When we have the children come in and we're able to support them in the early grades, starting out of EI and coming right to us, and going through school all the years with all of the students, they do become a community. And I have to tell you, sometimes our parents learn through their children. That's what I've witnessed. Sometimes that's the best way for them to learn. They see it in action.
Yeah,
So
Lydia,
it sounds like it's something that you think about a lot, but it's not part of this PDE required report, at least.
No, it's not one of the sections that
Yeah.
I have to fill out.
Lydia,
Well,
that was, Lydia, I see you. Jenny, I just wanted to clarify that. So this report that we got, the 45-page document, this is a very, because this cover actually looks really familiar to me, so I'm sure in my time on the board, I've approved a couple of these, or that
Every 3
this
years.
is, this is a very prescribed, formulaic report that you're asked to generate. And
Correct.
the PowerPoint is kind of the anecdotal drill
Right.
down of the 45 pages, but the parameters about what you're supposed to be looking at least with regard to this particular report that gets submitted to PDE, correct?
Correct.
Right, all righty. Lydia, hang on a second. I do know Amy had her hand up a few minutes ago, and then I'll get to you. Yes, Amy?
Sarah had her hand up. I can go last. I don't care.
You're on. You might as well. It's fine.
Jenny, the part about transition, who was the DCI, what role does the DCIU person play in transition again? Can you explain that?
So we contracted with her. She comes in. She started out by working with George and I, telling us all the different new things with Indicator 13. She then asked us to gather, and we gathered up IEPs. We redacted them, gave them to her so she could look at sampling IEPs throughout our district. So she got a sense of what it was our IEPs looked like. She then met with our teachers as a team. Then she met with them individually, went over different questions and answers. And then at the end, we were able to submit other IEPs after the training so that she would say, yes, you got this and you still need to work on this, but she worked directly with our teachers. So it wasn't an evaluative type thing. It was more of a collaboration. And they worked together very well, just making sure that all the pieces of the transition were in there, and that the IEP, there's only one way to put it, it was balanced. So what we have in the needs section, in the transition section, aligned with the transition goals, aligned with the child's IEP goals, and the whole thing just read as one very succinct document and made sense. We are inviting the right people to IEP meetings, making sure, and we've also come up with all different formats of all the different agencies the parents need to be made aware of. And we, by utilizing Maureen Leo, one of our learning support teachers at the high school that is our transition coordinator, she came up with this whole sheet that is now down at the middle school along with Kathy Rapino, because that's when the kids can turn 14. And we are providing this in a much more succinct manner and giving our parents a lot more resources at their fingertips should they need them. So these were all different things that we've done through the transition, the indicator 13 transition part.
Okay.
It will continue next year. And actually, George and I were supposed to meet with her, and we will, and we will find out what the next plan is going to be moving forward, since she has looked at all of our teachers' documents, and she'll make a prescription of where she thinks we should go next, based off of what she saw.
Great, thank you.
Okay,
Lydia? Lydia, did you have a question?
Yes. Am I on?
You are.
Yes, thank you. I don't have a question. I just want to answer a question somebody else had about HMS. I've never heard of it as referred to anything else but HMS, and it is a school that specializes for students that have cerebral palsy mostly. My other comment is for Bradley, and I don't see his picture still there, but there's a club at the high school, the Best Buddies Club, that I think is one of a very, very popular club at the high school that shows the result that I think we have a pretty inclusive culture in Radnor, that our high school students really want to be a part of that. And I think that shows that they've learned that through the years, that to include students that, maybe have special needs, and to be part of the community. And there is a spirit of kids wanting to do that. I'll just putting that
It
out.
actually starts at the middle school. Mrs. Schulberg has a group at the middle school, so Best Buddies is down there as well.
That's great.
Great, thank you. Sarah, you had a question?
I did. I just, and if it's more detailed than we should get into in this meeting, I understand, or if it's not appropriate for public discussion. I know a lot of the paraprofessionals work closely with the students when we're in school. I didn't know, as part of the out of school instruction and kind of trying to keep up with our special ed program and planning, if you have found ways for them to connect with their students while we're all working remotely.
So we're kind of still looking into that.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not quite there yet, but yes.
Okay.
Okay, great. So, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Is there anything else?
Susan, I'm sorry, and I'm sorry, Jenny, I apologize. I think maybe I didn't ask my question properly.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. No, it's not you. I'm gonna attempt it again, if that's okay. When I was asking about the DCU person, I wasn't thinking about that in terms of the transition the right way. I guess my question is, I know too, from what Nancy experienced, I think, as being part of this group, I know firsthand that the transition has been something that a number of parents, as their kids are getting ready to leave high school, have been very concerned about and anxious about what do I do next. I wasn't aware, actually, that there was such a thing as a transition coordinator at the high school. And I'm just wondering, as part of the transition plan, is that position, for whatever it is, because I haven't been exposed to it, is that position going to stay the same? Or is that position going to be working as per goal 2 with all of these other staff members to try to help address that lack of awareness or uncertainty that parents have as their kids have to face what comes after high school?
Okay, so indicator 13 keeps growing year after year. So that's for the transition piece. Transition coordinator is continuing to go to different things, and the list and the access that we're giving parents is much greater now after this training than it ever was in the past. So moving forward, we are obviously growing, and the state and the transition in indicator 13 is growing as a piece of what our IEPs need to have in them. So yes, I hope Maureen still wants Maureen Leo. She's awesome. I hope she still wants to be our transition coordinator and continue to work on that, because the things that she's put in place this year were pretty substantial for our teachers at the high school, and at least 3 of them at the middle school, that touch students that end up being like possibly 14 before they leave the middle school. So they're actually working together on that.
Okay.
But yes, it is different. It's a much larger piece of a student's IEP than it was in the past. Much
Okay.
larger.
Good to know. And one last question, when this comes before us as a board next month, I'm not sure, is this something that's available to be seen as a public document? I assume it is. 'cause
Has to be.
Okay.
It's on our,
For 30
Amy, it's
days.
posted.
Yeah.
This
Has to
document's
be for
posted.
30 days, correct.
Is it on the special education tab? I mean, I was looking actually for the old plan. I'm not sure it's under, just FYI, on the district website, under Department Special Education. Is that where someone would find it?
No, it's online. So I don't think it's on our website, the old plan. I'm pretty sure it's not. So it would be under our comprehensive plan I mean, I don't know. Not to put you on
We
the
can,
spot,
we can
Ken.
look
Is
at
our
that. We'll make sure,
comprehensive plan-
this is posted, and it's posted, besides, it's now public on board docs, but we can also look to see, I'll talk to Michael after the meeting to see if it's something that can makes sense to post as well on our website under special education as well. And then there's some other requirements I think, Jenny, you have as also just trying to share it in other places as well. So we'll be doing that over the next month to make sure that our public has a chance to see this.
Great,
Right.
thank
This
you.
piece will eventually be in the comprehensive plan that I believe the district has to work on. I think it's due November maybe of next school year as we enter into it. So it's embedded in the comprehensive plan, the special ed plan.
Okay. All righty. Well, thank you very much. Okay, I'm sorry, Nancy, go ahead. Your screen is dark. It's a little hard for me to see it. Go ahead.
And just so board members know.
Sorry, Jenny, I just have one last thing. For this comprehensive plan and the goals, I assume that the disproportionality and the interventions that we're currently doing are going to be incorporated in that as well.
In the goals?
Yeah, I mean, for this.
Some of them kind of are. We have a little the MTSS, but the reading absolutely is part of that. So some of the reading goals would line right up with what it is we did with our reading intervention programs and our professional development for staff. So it very much is, but not directly. Because reading as a whole, I had to write goals as a whole, and this is just on the disproportionality. So it's like 2 different things, but definitely a lot of the things in here, MTSS, you'll find that in our goals.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll also find a lot to do with our reading programs in our goals. But this also has things to do with math and our tutoring program, which really isn't a goal, but it was just a program that we put in place to assist our students.
And we won't lose sight of that. We're going to keep moving forward on those things as well.
Yeah, we're going to have to. Every year, this disproportionality is going to come out. So every year we have the possibility of, being able to show that this has gone away for that year, or possibly another area of disproportionality may come out. We just don't know. So
Right.
Every year we look at that. And so next year we're going to be looking at the 2018-19 school year.
Okay, thank you.
All righty, great. So let's see, we're going to move on to our priority action discussion item. And the first item we have is 7.1, ratification of technology purchase. And the recommended action is that the board ratifies the purchase of additional technology equipment totaling $769,368 as part of the 2-year technology plan. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, administration purchased additional technology equipment to accommodate all students, to improve programming, to improve the infrastructure, and to continue remote learning. Funds for this purchase came from the technology budget and curriculum budget in the general fund in the 2019-2020 school year. These purchases were anticipated over the next 2 years and have been accelerated in order to improve our current technology supports for students and staff. I would entertain a motion of this ratification. You got to speak it up, please.
Motion.
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, so I've got Sarah moved it and Lydia seconded it. Ken, I don't know if there's much to say about this. The board was briefed on this, I believe, a week and a half ago or thereabouts. We had a conversation earlier in the evening under our discussion from Dan and Sean about the pieces that were put into place that are allowing us to be actively moving forward in our online instruction. Does the board have any questions or comments about this?
I would find it helpful if Ken would just disclose to everyone kind of how we found this money in the budget, since it wasn't technically budgeted for this year.
Sure.
So the public knows where we're coming up with the funds.
Sure. Two ways. So we looked at, for a portion of it, we have looked at the curriculum budget and the current technology budget. Each year as a practice, just because we have the dollars in budgeted, if we can find savings, or if we, hopefully at the end of the year we've done a good job budgeting, we hope that there's a little bit of excess that has an opportunity then to roll into the general fund. We were looking at our current budgets, both in technology and curriculum, and we had some dollars we could pull from based on some savings we were able to find this school year. Additionally, we also then started to look at our substitute costs, different areas that because of the closure, we're having some savings. One of those areas was substitute costs. Another area that comes through the curriculum budget is professional development, meaning conferences for different staff members, whether it's professional staff, administrators, depending who that is. So we had savings in those areas as well. So collectively, pulling from all those items together is how we were able to pull together covering those costs this year. It's not that we're not going to have other purchases in future years, I'm sure, but these were, things that we have anticipated purchasing that we would budget. So I think in the long run, it will help us out as well as we look at our technology moving forward, since these, were things we're anticipating in the future years.
Do we have any other questions or comments? Okay. So seeing none, actually, I guess, all right. Seeing none, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor, just please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. Okay, the motion passes 8-0 with Amy Goldman away from I would say the dais, but it's not really the dais, away from the screen. All right, now we're going to move on to 7.2, ratification of standard hourly rate to all support staff beginning March 16th through March 29, 2020. The recommended action is that the board approves the below resolution for ratification of standard hourly rate to all support staff beginning March 16th through March 2020. Whereas there are significant health and safety concerns regarding coronavirus, COVID-19, and the safe opening and operation of school buildings and facilities, and whereas on March 13th, 2020, Governor Wolf mandated the closure of all school districts in Pennsylvania for a period of 2 weeks to contain the spread of the coronavirus, COVID-19. Now, therefore, be it resolved as follows. 1, for the period beginning March 16th, 2020, and ending March 29th, 2020, the district shall pay district employees who are not assigned to perform work at their standard hourly rate or contracted amount as if such employee had been actively at work for their normal schedules. 2, the provisions of this resolution shall expire after March 29th, 2020, and the board may consider further resolutions pending reopening of the schools. 3, the board authorizes its administration to take any action necessary to effectuate the intent and purposes of this resolution. So for purposes of discussion, I will entertain a motion and a second.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Again, I don't know that this needs a lot of explanation to the board. Ken, approached us when the schools closed. We had a discussion about, hold on a second. We had a discussion and the board was briefed that, did we want to pay the staff through March 29th after the governor initially closed the schools? And the board gave indication that, yes, this was something that we wanted to do. So this is a ratification of that. Again, Ken, I don't know if you have more you want to add, and then I'll entertain questions from the board. All righty. Are there any questions about this one from the board? Yes, Amy.
Is there a memorandum of understanding that was drafted for this or the following resolution?
I'll let Mike jump in or Todd, but yes, I believe so.
Yeah, there has been a memorandum of understanding drafted. It covers this and the next resolution, and the union has reviewed it, and it memorializes what's stated in here. So if the board passes this, then that memorandum of understanding will be executed.
Okay, and just to follow up on the question Sarah asked, Ken, obviously the funds for this these were already budgeted dollars. We had intended to pay staff, and so this isn't anything extraordinary that we didn't already budget for.
Correct.
Okay. So do we have any other comments or questions at this point? Yes, Lydia, go ahead.
So it's my understanding, obviously, things are moving very quickly, but I think that it's important to note that it's my understanding that this is in line with what other neighboring districts are considering.
Lydia, we're talking about the first one. This is just what we've already done. This is a ratification.
Yes, but I think it pertains to both of them.
Okay.
I believe other people are doing this as well. Is that correct? Is that your understanding?
That is correct. There is a varying among all the districts, but there are other districts doing exactly what we're doing.
Okay. Was there more, Lydia? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that is important to me that that this, I believe, is the right thing to do, but I want to be sure that maybe less affluent districts are also, able to do that. I don't want us to be a district that is out of step with what generally public education is doing. So I'm just confirming that that's our understanding.
And I'll just echo what Todd said. I know other districts are looking at and considering this. There is also legislation that supposedly could be enacted, any day now, or may not be enacted, but that could be enacted that would either encourage districts to do this or require us to do this. So that discussion is out there as well on the state level.
Okay. Is there any other questions or comments about this particular resolution? Yes, Sarah.
I want to clarify for anyone, we didn't vote on this. Ken told us this was his intention, and we said we would agree to ratify it, but we didn't vote in executive session on this. I mean, it is a personnel type matter, but, and I think, Ken, that you were also pretty clear with us. At least right now, it looks like actually a lot of these employees are actually still working. They're just working remotely. It's a very small segment of our employees who've done nothing, because even the unions that aren't there all day, every day, but the food service workers and the transportation workers have certainly contributed in other ways, and everybody has stepped up. This is not a, everybody jump on the bandwagon. We're paying people who, for a lot of this, are actually doing work.
Yes, I mean, and this falls in line with a lot of things that sometimes happen with the school district in the sense of board timing and when we have board meetings. We didn't have a board meeting scheduled when the governor closed things. We had to I, as superintendent administration, had to make a decision what we were going to do for that 2-week closure. So that's when I reached out to the board president and reached out to the rest of the board and shared this as, administratively our recommendation. And with the board's, understanding that we were going to move forward with that we would have to actually take a public vote and ratify that we were planning to pay them. So that's what we are doing tonight, right now, with this resolution for those for those 2 weeks. Sarah, to your other point, yes, there are people within these groups that have been coming in, especially as you look at our food services. They've been unbelievable. Those that have been coming in, and actually they're actually contemplating, or I think they decided today to add an additional day where they're going to do some food distribution. And the same thing with some of our drivers. Now, it hasn't been all of them, but some of our drivers have come in and to support. We have, as Dr. McCook mentioned before, as Byron shared, we talk about there's others that we've identified as essential employees. Just about every one of our tech, and I think we're like, what is that called when you deputize people? I think we're looking to deputize people into the tech department. But we've been they have been coming in as well. Around the clock preparing things. So there is some who haven't been, but there are certainly, what has been impressive to see is the numbers that are just so willing and letting us know how else can we help. A couple of our drivers who did the runs for the food service said, well, even if you don't deliver them, we'll come in and help you distribute if you do grab and go. And they came in and was actually helping man the lines and helping distribute, which was just so wonderful to see.
Okay, is there other comment? Alrighty, well then, all those in favor, say aye. Raise your hand, say aye. And looks like, Andrew, I can't really see your screen. Oh yeah, there you go. The motion passes 9-0. Alrighty, great.
And board members, just so you know, or public who are watching, Susan and I keep looking to our right and left because we can see you better on the TVs that are on the wall, the screens on the wall, than we can from the computer that's recording us. It's very hard to see all of you when we look straight ahead. So if we keep looking to our side, it's not because we're ignoring you. It's you are much clearer to one of the sides than you are straight ahead for us.
You're all much closer. Okay, so then our next item is an actual resolution. And read it as follows. Resolution to approve standard hourly rate to all support staff beginning March 29th, it's actually going to be March 28th. No, 29th, because we did the last one, went through the 29th. The dates on this are a little bit wrong. We're going to have to make an adjustment. So it will be March 29th. Let me begin again, sorry. The resolution is to approve standard hourly rates to all support staff beginning March 29th, 2020, and until the earlier of, 1, the end of the 1920 school year, so that's the 2019-2020 school year. I'll be glad when that's over. Or 2, the reopening of district's physical operations. So the recommended action is that the board approves the below resolution to approve standard hourly rates to all support staff beginning March 29th, 2020, we're going to have to change that on here, and until the earlier of 1, the end of the 2019-2020 school year, or 2, the reopening of the district's full physical operations. Whereas the significant health and safety concerns regarding coronavirus COVID-19 and the safe opening and operation of school buildings and facilities, and whereas on March 23, 2020, Governor Wolf mandated the closure of all school districts in Pennsylvania for a period of 2 additional weeks to contain the spread of the coronavirus COVID-19 until April 6, 2020, whereas it is possible that schools could be closed for longer, whereas the Board of School Directors wishes to provide guidance on how the administration should proceed given the uncertainties moving forward, now therefore be it resolved as follows. 1, for the period beginning March 29th, 2020, so we're going to change that 30 to a 29, and until the earlier of 1, the end of the 2019-2020 school year, or 2, the reopening of the district's full physical operations, the district shall pay district employees who are not assigned to perform work for any or all of their regularly scheduled work hours at their standard hourly rates or contracted amounts as if such employee had been actively at work for their regular schedules. 2, the provisions of this resolution shall expire immediately upon the earlier of 1, the end of the 2019-2020 school year, or 2, the reopening of the district's full physical operations. 3, The board authorizes its administration to take any action necessary to effectuate the intent and purposes of this resolution. And I will entertain a motion and a second.
So moved.
And a second?
Sec-
Amy, okay,
Second.
so I've got a motion from Amy and a second from Liz. Jackie? All righty, so, Ken, I don't know if you want to take this, or you
Can I
want me
make
to
a
start?
Can I make a comment, Susan, on something, though, that you referenced? This resolution has 3 different dates in it,
Yeah, I've changed the dates to the 29th.
but what I want to
No.
ask you, hold on, is that the previous resolution says that it expires after March 29th. So my question is, shouldn't this all be starting on March 30th?
Yes.
Well, so actually, the problem is that in the last resolution, in one spot, it says it ends March 29th, and in another spot, it says it expires after March 29th. So, Mike Christofko, what would you suggest for dates for us on this?
The prior resolution goes through March 29th. This one should start on March 30th and move forward.
Okay, so I'm going to entertain a motion to table this resolution or offer a friendly amendment. Mike, is that what I need to do? To change the dates to March 30th?
Yeah, the way that it was read had the date March 29th in it. So you would have to offer an amendment to just change the date to March 30th.
Okay, so I'll entertain a friendly amendment to change the date to March 30th.
Susan, I'm just concerned that there are 3 in the resolution itself.
Yeah,
There
Amy, the
are-
dates I'm asking for a friendly amendment to change the dates to March 30th. That's what I'm asking for.
To change
So
change all of them.
Yes.
Forgive me, I don't think that was clear. So all dates would say March 30th?
Correct.
Great, thank you.
All dates
Susan?
that pertain to when the pay would start. So the March 23rd for the Governor Wolf, that would stay March 23rd.
Right, this is actually, the recommended action erroneously references March 28th, but the resolution itself, the now therefore be it resolved, says for the period beginning March 30th, and that's accurate.
Correct, that's accurate.
So the resolution should be fine. It's the recommended action that has a typo.
And
it
the
shouldn't. I don't
subject
think it-
title of the resolution itself.
Correct.
Okay, but the actual resolution is what we're adopting. so-
Well, that's true. There you go. Thank you, Sarah. So I will take a friendly amendment to change the resolution title and the recommended action from March 29th in the title and March 28th in the recommended action.
Move.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Great, so thank you for bearing with us on those confusion on the dates. We literally got this just shortly before the meeting. So with the dates clarified, that it's a resolution to approve the pay beginning March 30th, and that the recommended action approves the pay beginning March 30th, and as Sarah correctly stated, the actual resolution of it is correctly stated at March 30th, we can now proceed. Ken?
I'm sorry, may I just ask one question? Is there, Mike Christofko, is there any conflict in the previous resolution because of the different wording in the now therefore be it resolved, where the first one says it ends March 29th and the other one, and number 2 says it expires after March 29th? Could there be any potential discrepancy about the payment on March 29th?
No, it said that it expires after March 29th, which means it's in effect through March 29th.
Right.
Right.
In the sentence before, though, it said ending March 29th.
Right, because it was good until, that's what, Mike Christofko, why don't you weigh in again on that? I thought we asked this a few minutes ago, but.
Yeah, it is good through the end of the day, March 29th. That's the date that it ends, on the end of the day, March 29th.
March 29th is also a Sunday, so we probably aren't paying people for that day.
In all likelihood, yes. We realized that when we were talking about this beforehand, but we're going to keep a continuation of dates. So, Ken, take it away?
Sure.
Great, thanks.
With this closure, this has been a topic that many of our employee groups, especially as we look at our transportation, our food services, some of our custodial, our support staff, when it comes to our paraprofessionals, have had a lot of questions. We have looked at this administratively from many different angles. We've tried to look and understand that if this closure should continue beyond what we know right now, what are the different options that are available to our staff, some of the staff that we may not need to be in, and looking at what the options are for unemployment, what we as a district would be responsible for unemployment. So we looked very carefully at unemployment. We would be responsible for about 51% of the salary for about 26 weeks. We also looked at how that unemployment would play out for them through the rest of the school year, and possibly the implications, how that would be for the summer. We also have looked very carefully. This is a group of our staff and employees that, while the economy was doing well before all of this, this was an area that we were challenged to find applicants. We were having a harder and harder time. Our support staff, when you look at our transportation, you look at our food services, you look at our paraprofessionals, they are critical to our organization. They are critical to supporting our educational program. And we felt that as a district, that anything we can try to do to help support them through this and have a seamless as a startup as a district when we can be back in. And we believe this resolution will help us to be seamless, help us to continue to support them. I think the gesture that the board has taken and really the action that is in here also does have an opportunity for us as a district where we have already budgeted dollars. We have already budgeted these dollars and collected these dollars and planned to pay these dollars. And in that already budgeting those dollars, I'm concerned about what's happening to our overall economy. I'm concerned about, as we look at all sectors, what this closure is doing. This is our opportunity to keep our operation seamless. It's our opportunity to support our people that are working here in Radnor. I think it sends one heck of a message as everyone in the state prior to coronavirus was having searching for bus drivers. It sends one heck of a message about Radnor and what Radnor will do to support its staff. As I mentioned before, the opportunities that our staff are having right now to even come in and support us in different ways, I know are going to continue. I know if this closure is prolonged, we will continue to look at ways and opportunities for our support staff to continue to support our operations. Maybe it will be in a different format. So we believe this will help with the continuity for the district, and that's many of the reasons why we're putting it forward tonight.
Thank you, Ken. I appreciate that. So we had Michelle Deco on the phone earlier. She did unfortunately have to she stepped away. Her number is still off of there. We did gather some data in terms of the overall cost of this. I don't know, do you care to share? I mean, I'm happy to talk about it. We, as Ken referenced, we have to pay, assuming this group of employees were to go out on unemployment, we would be responsible for 51% of their pay. And so what we're really talking about authorizing is the difference between what this typical pay would be minus the 51%. That's how we approach the math of this. In addition, as again, Michelle's not here, so she's not going to be able to answer every single question, but Todd, you might be able to weigh in on this. I think you're there. Yes, you are. One of the things that Ken and I talked about in leadership and with Amy is there's a financial cost to if a bunch of our employees were to leave us and then we had to rehire and bring them on board. That's a cost to your department, both in terms of manpower, executing, and financial costs. I'm not going to ask you for exact numbers, but can you speak to that a little bit? Because that is one of the pieces of the puzzle for trying to provide some security to our employees at this point.
Yeah, that's correct. We would have costs to bring people in and train them. Plus the unemployment would actually run over the summer as well. So we would be paying those employees 51% of their salary over the summer. So really it kind of nets out to not the same amount, but it's not far away by paying them their wages through the end of the school year compared to paying them unemployment through the end of August.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That was what you were explaining that to me this morning. So basically 2 months of paying these employees at their regular salary. We're not talking about doing overtime or things like that. And there is another piece I want to touch on, but that's right, Todd. They would be eligible for unemployment through the summer. And so 4 months, if it went all the way till September, it's effectively the same dollars, just spread out a little differently.
Exactly. So if we looked at really the costs are the weeks now for this resolution, the costs are the weeks in April. The support staff groups we are looking at are not normally paid during spring break, so that is not in play as we look at the month of April, so that's why it's not all the weeks in April. And then if let's say after April, if we had put them on unemployment, if we dropped them, they put them on unemployment, what would happen is they would get 51% of their salary for May and June, and they would also have the opportunity to apply, this is what Mr. Stitzel was explaining, for unemployment in July and August. If they're employed with us, they would not be able to apply for unemployment in July and August. So what happens is the net for the district, because there's 51% of the salary, we could either be paying full salary May and June, or we could be looking at half salary in May and June, but then they would have half salary in July and August. The net for the district for those 4 months would be about the same for us from a cost perspective. Where this could be an additional cost for us is the month of April and the weeks in April. Does that make sense to the board? That's what Todd was trying to explain. Does that make sense?
So can you just explain, Ken, are you saying, my understanding of the resolution is that we'll pay people at their standard hourly rate as if they had worked.
Correct.
But you're saying we would pay for the week of spring break, which would not be a week they would have worked.
Correct, because this resolution is continuing their regular pay, and as part of their regular pay, they would not get paid for spring break. So we are, as we discussed at the beginning part of the meeting, we're planning on continuing with our traditional spring break, and during our traditional spring break, already pre-negotiated as planned for this school year, the groups we're talking about would not be receiving pay as part of their hourly pay.
And the way we don't end up paying unemployment in the summer normally is we give all those employees assurance letters that states that they are welcome back in the fall every year. So that's why we don't have to pay unemployment over the summer in a normal year. But in this particular case, if we would start them on unemployment, we would have to pay unemployment over the entire summer.
All right. So do we have more questions about this? It's hard for me to see a couple. Oh, I should look over here. All righty. No? Yes? No? All right. Well, if we don't have any further questions about it, I guess I will call the vote. All those in favor? And it looks to me that the resolution passes 9-0. It's unanimous. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I do think that this is going to go a long way toward relieving the stress that we can relieve to these employees, as we all try to navigate moving forward. All righty. Great. So then the next item is new business. I don't so much know that do we have any new business? Oh, yes, Lydia, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, really briefly, I just had a question about the bus barn, sort of the, not renovations, but dealing with the aftermath of the fire. Has that all been halted, or are they still carrying on with the work there?
It's a great question. So we were planning to have the work continue at the bus garage. The work there, we're continuing to have the process and steps taking place to move the high school project forward, and also our study of our enrollment and facilities to keep that moving forward. As of the governor's order on Thursday night, all of those things have been stopped. As of the current order, those groups that were working, one of the pieces that the governor's orders did pertain to Thursday evening was construction, projects as well. So all of those pieces have stopped right now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I just wondered.
Okay, great.
So actually, I'm sorry, can I just
Sure.
follow up on that?
Of course, go ahead.
The architects were working on designs, which people are allowed to work from home. Is there a reason they aren't able to continue with that?
There are pieces he is, and we've spoken to him, there are pieces that he is trying to work on his own that he can do, but there was pieces also that required him to be in here. He wound up with those orders coming in. He actually spent the day in here on Thursday, knowing they're coming in, gathering as many files, gathering as many things that he could take with him to try to continue that. But there was some also site visits that needed to take place, for some of that. So yes, some of it will happen, but there's a lot of pieces, unfortunately, that could get slowed down.
So this will slow the feasibility study, which makes sense from a site standpoint, but I appreciate that he's still working on the drawings.
Yes. Is there any other new business? Alrighty, so I'm going to move into board announcements. And just to say, I guess I'll combine new business and board announcements together. We will, Amy and Ken and I will have to talk. We will begin to craft a plan of how we can keep committee work moving forward in some fashion, because, as we talked about earlier, the business of the district needs to continue in order for, we've got our employees here who are wanting to work on district goals and wanting to adjust and do things as best they can for the kids. So we'll have a conversation about how we can best effectuate that. But leading up to that, the next regular business meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, April 28th, 2020 at 7 p.m. in the Administration Building, ground floor conference room. This is a change of venue. It's typically at the Township Building, but that is, at least currently, primary election day. Stay tuned. Location may go back to the Township Building because I think primary election day is going to move, or will still be virtual.
I think it's already, I think in the state of Pennsylvania, I think it already did change, but there's so much information.
Right.
I think the Pennsylvania's already changed it, and that's something else that we will, have to talk about. I believe that primary day has been changed. That is an instructional day that we can talk about and whether we wanted to capture or not, but we can talk about that down the road.
Okay, so I guess stay posted. The district at this point, the website is going to be everyone's best venue for up to the latest minute information about where and when we're meeting. Alrighty, so at this time, I'm going to entertain another round of public comment on new issues raised or subjects developed following our priority action items. If citizens are watching, they are encouraged to address the board via email at boardcomments@rtsd.org. Michael, there you go. Do we have additional board comments tonight?
No additional comments.
Okay, so let's see. I will call for an adjournment then.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
So a motion from Lydia and a second from Amy. All those in favor, say aye. All righty. Good night, everyone. Thank you all so much. We're adjourned.
Thank you.